Welcome, traveller of time and mind. Take a deep, slow breath, and let the heavy, invisible armour of your daily worries gently slide from your shoulders. Allow your eyes to grow heavy, and let the relentless, fast-paced rhythm of the modern world begin to dissolve into complete nothingness. Tonight, we are stepping far away from the noise, the digital screens, and the endless clutter of the present day. We are embarking on a journey to a sanctuary of absolute tranquility. It's a place where time slows down to a crawl, and where every single breath brings a deeper, more profound sense of peace. Imagine yourself drifting backwards through the centuries, carried on a gentle, cool breeze that blows across the vast, rolling steppes of Central Asia. The year is 1432. We are approaching the magnificent city of Samarkand, zone of the grandest jewels along the ancient Silk Road. By day, this city is a chaotic masterpiece of human energy, a vibrant tapestry of merchants bargaining over shimmering silks, the pungent aroma of cumin and saffron drifting from open-air markets, and the thunderous clatter of horse hooves on cobblestones. But tonight, the great city is under a spell of deep, sun-broken slumber. The massive turquoise domes and towering minarets, which gleam with brilliant blues under the desert sun, are now bathed in the soft, silver glow of a midnight crescent moon. The bustling bazaars are empty, the fires have burned down to glowing embers. The only sound outside is the occasional, distant sigh of a resting camel in a dark courtyard. Our path takes us away from the sleeping markets, guiding us up a gentle hill toward the grand observatory of Samarkand. This is a monument to human curiosity. It's a place where scholars look beyond the earthly realm to understand the eternal geometry of the cosmos. We step inside, descending a flight of smooth stone steps into the lower chambers of the observatory. As you descend, notice how the air changes. The crisp, chilly night air of the desert gives way to an enveloping, cozy warmth. We pass through a heavy, iron-studded door made of thick dark oak. As it clicks shut behind us, something extraordinary happens. The outside world completely vanishes. These lower rooms are built deep within the earth, surrounded by thick, massive adobe and stone walls. They were designed specifically to insulate the scholars from the harsh desert elements, but they also serve another purpose. They shut out every single echo of human existence. Inside this room, there is an environment of absolute, sun-broken silence. It is not a cold or eerie silence, but a profound, comforting stillness, the kind of silence that wraps around you like a heavy, familiar blanket, instantly quieting the chattering thoughts in your mind. You are completely safe here. You are entirely protected from the demands of the world. Look around this cozy, intellectual sanctuary. The room is bathed in the warm, steady, samber glow of a single oil lamp resting on a massive, dark wooden workbench. The flame is perfectly still, casting long, soft shadows that dance gently across the curved, textured adobe walls. The air is rich and intoxicatingly comforting, filled with a unique blend of aromas, the metallic tang of polished brass instruments, the earthy scent of old ink and dry parchment, and the deep, sweet fragrance of the burning oil lamp. But dominating it all is the clean, crisp, and incredibly soothing scent of fresh wood shavings. In the centre of this golden circle of light sits the astronomer. He is a man of immense knowledge, yet his presence is entirely humble and grounded. Tonight, she is not gazing through a telescope or calculating complex equations on parchment. Tonight, his universe has narrowed down to a single, beautifully focused act of craftsmanship. He is carving a wooden astrolabe, a delicate, precise instrument designed to map the movements of the stars and planets. On his workbench lies a thick, perfectly circular disc of fine cedar wood. Its grain is tight and beautiful, a natural masterpiece waiting to be shaped. The astronomer holds a small, perfectly sharpened steel chisel in his steady hand. His movements are deliberate, sun-hurried, sand-infused with a lifetime of patience. He places the edge of the blade against the smooth surface of the cedar. Listen. With a slow, measured push, the chisel glides through the wood. A clean, crisp, rhythmic sound echoes softly in the silent room. A perfect, paper-thin ribbon of fragrant cedar wood curls upward from the blade, tumbling gently onto the table alongside a small hill of golden shavings. The moment the wood is cut, a fresh wave of its sweet, resinous aroma fills the air, grounding you even deeper into the present moment. This is a place where nothing else matters. There are no deadlines here, no expectations, and no rushing. There is only the steady glow of the lamp, the smell of the cedar, and the beautifully repetitive, satisfying rhythm of a master artisan creating order out of raw nature. As we sit here in the quiet warmth of this Samarkand workshop, let yourself sink deeper into the stool. Let your mind align with the slow, peaceful cadence of the craftsman's hands, as we prepare to spend the night in this timeless sanctuary of the stars. The heavy silence of the underground workshop acts as a soothing balm, filtering out the chaos of the centuries and leaving only the pure, undistorted present moment. As the astronomer prepares his tools for the next series of delicate cuts, take a moment to look around this subterranean sanctuary, letting your eyes adapt to the rich golden palette of the oil-lit chamber. The room is square, built with thick structural blocks of sun-dried adobe that have been smoothed over with a fine layer of pale clay plaster. The walls are not perfectly flat. They bear the subtle organic contours of human hands, capturing the flickering amber light of the lamp in a dance of soft highlights and gentle velvet shadows. Archways curve gracefully near the ceiling, meeting at a central point that creates a low, protective dome overhead, reinforcing the feeling that you are resting within the very heart of the earth itself. Suspended from the center of this dome is a large, unlit bronze chandelier, its intricate filigree work casting a complex geometric shadow across the stone floor below. Along the far wall, tall shelves crafted from dark, sturdy walnut wood are packed with the accumulated knowledge of generations. Thick, leather-bound manuscripts rest side by side, their spines embossed with elegant calligraphy that glints faintly in the dim light. Some of these scrolls have traveled thousands of miles along the hazardous mountain passes of the Silk Road, carrying the mathematical insights of ancient Greece, India, and Persia straight to this intellectual haven in Samarkand. Next to the books rest various scientific instruments of the trade, made of heavy brass, copper, and dark iron. There are quadrants used for measuring the altitudes of celestial bodies, small pocket sundials with folding gnomons, and masterfully crafted globes that depict the known geography of the Earth and the imagined spheres of the heavens. These metal objects catch the light of the oil lamp, reflecting tiny, intense points of golden fire into the darkness of the room. The astronomer reaches out his hand, his fingers brushing over a tray of specialized carving tools arranged neatly on a piece of dark felt cloth. Each tool is a testament to the relationship between the scientist and his instruments. There are narrow gouges for carving deep, clean grooves, flat chisels of varying widths for smoothing larger surfaces, and tiny, needle-sharp scribes used for etching the microscopic gradations of degrees onto the instrument's face. He selects a medium-sized gouge with a handle made of smoothed horn, worn shiny by years of constant use. His grip is firm yet relaxed, showing the easy confidence of a man who has spent decades mastering both the abstract laws of the cosmos and the physical realities of material craftsmanship. He turns his attention back to the circular plate of cedar wood resting securely on the heavy workbench, This particular piece of wood was harvested from the high mist-shrouded forests of the Tian Shan Mountains, chosen specifically for its extraordinarily tight grain and lack of knots. For months it has been seasoned in a dry cellar, allowing the natural moisture to evaporate slowly so that the finished astrolabe will never warp or crack, preserving its mathematical accuracy for centuries to come. The surface has already been planed to a uniform thickness, smooth as polished silk, yet still retaining the deep, rich, reddish-brown hue characteristic of ancient cedar. The astronomer leans forward, his shadow expanding across the wall behind him, creating a magnificent, larger-than-life silhouette of focus and determination. He positions the curved tip of the gouge at the exact outer edge of the disk, where the rim of the astrolabe will eventually display the 24 hours of the day. He applies a steady forward pressure, using his palm to guide the tool while his fingers control the depth of the cut. The steel bites into the cedar with a soft, clean resistance. The sound that follows is incredibly satisfying, a continuous low-pitched whisper as the razor-sharp edge splits the wood fibers apart. A long, elegant ribbon of cedar wood begins to curl upward from the blade, twisting like a delicate piece of parchment before breaking off and falling onto the workbench. Instantly, the friction of the cut releases a fresh, concentrated wave of the wood's natural oils. The air becomes heavy with the warm, spicy, and deeply grounding scent of fresh cedar, mixing beautifully with the sweet, mellow aroma of the sesame oil burning in the lamp. This scent fills your lungs with every breath you take, slowing your heart rate and anchoring your awareness to the peaceful rhythm of the work. There is no urgency in the astronomer's movements. He understands that a single slip of the hand, a single moment of distraction or impatience could ruin months of preparation and destroy the mathematical integrity of the instrument. He treats each stroke of the tool as an act of meditation, a physical manifestation of the eternal order he seeks to map. The rhythm of his breathing matches the rhythm of the carving, creating a harmonious cadence that fills the quiet room. You find yourself naturally aligning your own breath with his, inhaling as he repositions the tool, and exhaling slowly as the chisel glides through the wood. The repetitive nature of the sound creates a powerful auditory focus, drawing your mind away from any lingering thoughts of the past or anxieties about the future. In this room, the vastness of the universe and the microscopic precision of the human hand meet in perfect equilibrium. The bustling city of Samarkand above may be sleeping, its rulers dreaming of conquests and its merchants dreaming of wealth. But here in the subterranean warmth, a deeper, more permanent kind of wealth is being forged, the wealth of understanding, created through patience, silence, sand, the deliberate, beautiful mastery of wood and steel. The golden light from the oil lamp flickers ever so slightly as a tiny pocket of air catches the wick, casting brief dancing patterns across the deeply textured adobe walls before returning to its steady warm glow. In this absolute stillness, the astronomer gently sets down the horn-handled gouge and picks up a long, slender piece of polished bone used for burnishing the freshly carved groove. With a smooth back-and-forth motion, he presses the rounded tip of the bone into the channel he has just cut, compressing the remaining wood fibers until the interior of the groove gleams with a natural, subtle sheen. The sound changes from the sharp whisper of cutting to a soft, rhythmic sliding, a soothing, repetitive rustle that feels like the wind brushing through dry desert grasses at twilight. Each stroke reinforces the absolute dedication poured into this single object, a piece of wood destined to become a bridge between the wandering intellect of mankind and the immutable laws of the celestial spheres. The air remains thick with the comforting, earthy perfume of cedar, layered with the rich, slightly nutty scent of the burning oil and the faint, sweet trace of beeswax used to seal the reference parchments spread across the corner of the table. These parchments, yellowed with age and covered in intricate geometric diagrams, contain the complex mathematical tables calculated by the master astronomers of the Samarkand observatory. There are lists of star coordinates, calculations of planetary eclipses, and precise sine and cosine values drafted with lines so fine they look like spider webs frozen on the page. The astronomer looks at these diagrams, his dark eyes reflecting the tiny flame of the lamp, translating the abstract numbers into the physical reality of the wooden disk before him. To his left, a large water clock drips with a faint, rhythmic splash, a heavy, metallic drop falling into a copper basin once every 60 seconds, a solitary reminder of the steady, unyielding march of time through the dark hours of the night. But inside this room, time does not feel like a tyrant driving one forward. Instead, it feels like a vast, quiet ocean in which one can simply float, completely suspended in the joy of focused creation. The astronomer takes a deep, quiet breath, his chest rising and falling in perfect synchronization with the peaceful atmosphere of the room. He reaches for a small, iron-framed compass, adjusting its legs with a tiny brass screw until the points match a specific measurement on his parchment scale. He places the central pivot of the compass into a tiny, pre-drilled indentation at the exact mathematical center of the cedar disc. With a touch as light as a feather, he rotates the compass, the sharp steel point etching a microscopic, perfectly circular line into the wood. This line will serve as the Tropic of Capricorn, the outer boundary of the stars that his astrolabe will eventually display. The sound of the metal point scratching against the tight grain of the cedar is a tiny, high-pitched song, a pure note of mathematical precision breaking through the deep silence of the adobe chamber. He repeats the process, adjusting the instrument to scribe the celestial equator and the Tropic of Cancer, creating a series of concentric rings that look like ripples on the surface of a still pond. Every movement of his hands is an exercise in absolute control, a testament to decades spent training his muscles to obey the strictest commands of his mind. There is no hesitation, no shaking, and no doubt. He knows that to map the sky, one must possess a spirit that is as steady and unmoving as the North Star itself. As he works, the sheer isolation of the room becomes more and more comforting, a protective cocoon that separates this sacred act of creation from the political intrigues, the economic rivalries, and the fleeting noise of the great empire outside. Above these thick walls, the grand city of Samarkand rests beneath its blankets, its grand archways and blue-tiled madrasas silent under the gaze of the cosmos. The guards on the city walls walk their beats in silence, their spears glinting in the moonlight, completely unaware of the quiet magic unfolding in the deep chambers of the observatory. In this room, the boundaries between the past, the present, and the future seem to blur, leaving only the timeless essence of human curiosity and the deep satisfaction of working with one's hands. The astronomer leans back for a brief moment, stretching his shoulders with a slow, relaxed movement, looking down at the concentric circles etched into the red-brown wood with a quiet smile of satisfaction. The work is progressing exactly as it should, unfolding according to an ancient eternal blueprint. He picks up a small, fine-bristled brush made of camel hair and gently sweeps away the tiny particles of wood dust that have accumulated within the etched lines, clearing the path for the next phase of his labor. The soft rustle of the brush against the cedar is like a gentle whisper, a final benediction to the preparation of the wood before the real carving begins again. The gentle sweeping of the camel hair brush leaves the cedar disc perfectly clean, its newly etched concentric rings gleaming like faint silver threads under the steady, warm glow of the oil lamp. The astronomer sets the brush aside, his movements fluid and unhurried, reflecting the deep inner peace that comes from a life dedicated to the patient observation of the universe. He takes a slow, deep breath, savoring the rich, comforting fragrance of the wood and the sweet, burning sesame oil that fills the quiet sanctuary. This workshop is more than just a place of labor. It is a refuge for the soul, a timeless space where the chaotic noise of the world is completely barred by the thick protective embrace of the ancient adobe walls. If you are finding comfort in this tranquil space, enjoying the deep stillness of this historical night, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a gentle like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps keep this peaceful sanctuary alive for others seeking rest. Now the astronomer reaches for a small, specialized chisel with a V-shaped edge designed specifically for deep, clean line engraving. He holds the tool close to the blade, his fingers resting lightly against the cold steel, establishing a direct, intuitive connection between his mind and the wood. He places the point of the V-chisel at the outer edge of one of the etched circles, aligning it perfectly with a faint radial line that represents the meridian of Samarkand. With a steady, deliberate push of his palm, he guides the tool forward along the path. The sound returns that beautifully crisp, rhythmic whisper of metal slicing through tight cedar grain. A tiny uniform ribbon of wood curls away from the blade, exposing a deep, clean groove that catches the amber light, casting a sharp shadow that defines the line with absolute clarity. The astronomer repeats this motion for each of the major celestial divisions, rotating the wooden disc by a fraction of a degree after every cut. The repetitive nature of the task creates a soothing, hypnotic cadence that echoes softly through the silent room. Each stroke is identical in pressure, speed, and depth, a demonstration of masterful muscle memory developed over a lifetime of precision. The small pile of fragrant cedar shavings at the edge of the workbench grows slightly taller, releasing another wave of sweet grounding scent into the warm air. The steady dripping of the water clock in the background provides a soft, percussive counterpoint to the whisper of the chisel, marking the passage of the night with a gentle, watery rhythm. The astronomer is completely absorbed in his work, his focus so absolute that the boundaries of his own identity seem to dissolve into the act of creation. He is no longer just a man carving a piece of wood. He is the instrument through which the eternal geometry of the cosmos is translating itself into physical form. He looks down at the emerging pattern, seeing how the intersecting lines create a beautiful, balanced grid that will soon allow anyone to determine the time of day or night simply by looking at the positions of the stars. It is an act of profound human ingenuity, a way to find order and meaning within the vast, intimidating infinity of the night sky. The thick walls of the lower chamber continue to stand guard against the outside world, ensuring that not a single distraction can disrupt this sacred meditation. Outside, high above the subterranean room, the stars continue their silent, majestic dance across the black velvet dome of the Central Asian sky, moving in perfect alignment with the very lines the astronomer is carving into the cedar. The quiet satisfaction of this methodical work fills the entire room, creating an atmosphere of deep, comforting security that wraps around you like a heavy blanket. You can feel your own thoughts slowing down, mimicking the steady, unhurried pace of the craftsman's hands, as you sink deeper and deeper into a state of profound relaxation and peace. The deep, resonant silence of the observatory's lower chamber remains unbroken, save for the rhythmic whisper of the astronomer's tools and the steady, distant drip of the water clock. The golden pool of light from the oil lamp cradles the workbench, casting long, soft shadows that stretch across the smooth clay floor and climb the curved adobe walls. The astronomer now reaches for a small, curved scraper, an instrument made of hardened steel with a radiused edge, used to smooth out the interior valleys of the deeper grooves he has just carved. He rests his thumbs against the back of the metal blade, applying a gentle downward pressure as he draws it along the curved lines of the astrolabes plate. A soft, scraping hiss fills the air, a sound that is deeply satisfying and repetitive, like the sound of gentle waves washing over fine sand on a secluded beach. With each pass of the scraper, the rough edges left by the chisel disappear, leaving behind a channel that is perfectly uniform and smooth to the touch. The astronomer's fingers follow behind the tool, checking the work by feel alone, his skin sensitive to the slightest imperfection. This physical connection to the material is vital in the dark hours of the night, when the eyes can grow tired under the dim glow of a lamp. The hands must possess their own form of sight. The air in the workshop has grown even more fragrant, as the continuous manipulation of the cedar wood keeps releasing the sweet, therapeutic resins locked within its grain. It is a scent that clears the mind and calms the spirit, acting as a natural sedative in this subterranean sanctuary. The astronomer takes a quiet moment to lean back, resting his hands on his knees, and allowing his eyes to rest by looking into the soft darkness of the room's far corners. He looks toward the heavy wooden shelves where the ancient manuscripts lie in perfect order. He reflects on the long lineage of thinkers who came before him, the scholars of Baghdad, of Cairo, of Damascus, who all sat in similar lamplit rooms, staring at similar pieces of wood and brass, driven by the same quiet passion to understand the great design of the cosmos. He feels a deep sense of companionship with these distant souls, knowing that across time and space they are all bound together by the same pursuit of truth and beauty. The vastness of history feels intimate in this room, compressed into the singular, peaceful act of crafting an instrument of guidance. Turning his attention back to the workbench, he selects a fine steel scribe with a bone handle carved into the likeness of a falcon's feather. This tool is used for the most delicate part of the process, engraving the numerals and letters of the Arabic script that will name the stars and mark the degrees along the rim of the astrolabe. He positions the tip of the scribe at the 0 point of the meridian, takes a slow, steadying breath, and begins to execute the elegant curves of the calligraphy. The sound changes once again, becoming a series of tiny, crisp clicks and scratches as the sharp point cuts into the surface of the cedar. Each letter is a work of art in itself, requiring a perfect balance of fluid movement and rigid control. The astronomer moves with absolute deliberation, his wrist resting firmly on a small wooden block. To prevent any unwanted movement, he etches the name of Aldebaran, the bright red eye of the Taurus constellation, followed by Rigel, the brilliant foot of Orion. As each name is carved into the wood, it feels as though the stars themselves are being invited into this quiet room, their cosmic energies distilled into the warm, fragrant cedar plate. The process is slow, requiring hours of unbroken concentration, yet the astronomer shows no signs of fatigue or impatience. For him, this work is a form of prayer, a silent dialogue with the creator of the stars, executed with the highest level of human skill. The comforting embrace of the workshop wraps tightly around the scene, providing an absolute sanctuary where the mind can truly rest, entirely free from the frantic pace of the external world, drifting peacefully on the steady, rhythmic currents of historical craftsmanship. The crisp, microscopic scratching of the falcon feather scribe continues to weave its delicate tapestry across the rim of the cedar disc, filling the deep silence of the subterranean workshop with a comforting, steady cadence. Each letter of the ancient script is a masterpiece of precision, etched with a hand that has spent a lifetime translating the movements of the stars into lines upon parchment and wood. The astronomer watches the tiny dark grooves form beneath the steel tip, his mind completely focused on the flowing geometry of the characters. The ambient warmth of the room remains consistent, preserved perfectly by the massive adobe walls that stand as an unyielding barrier between this sanctuary of thought and the chilly night air of the sleeping Samarkand. The soft golden pool of light from the oil lamp reflects off the polished horn and steel tools, creating a small universe of warmth on the dark oak workbench. The sweet, heavy scent of cedar has settled into every corner of the space, blending into a soothing perfume that acts as a natural anchor for the mind, pushing away any lingering thoughts of the world outside. As the astronomer finishes etching the name of Vega, the brilliant star of the northern sky, he pauses to gently blow away the fine, powdery wood dust that has accumulated in the tiny crevices of the letters. A soft, warm sigh of air escapes his lips, clearing the surface and revealing the immaculate clarity of the inscriptions. He smiles faintly, a quiet expression of satisfaction that goes unseen by anyone but the shadows dancing on the wall. He places the scribe back into its felt-lined tray with a soft click, a sound that feels magnified by the absolute stillness of the room. He then reaches for a small piece of natural pumice stone wrapped in a scrap of soft linen cloth, which he uses to gently buff the entire surface of the disc. The sound transforms into a rhythmic shushing, a gentle, continuous whisper that sounds like dry winter leaves brushed across smooth courtyard bricks by a midnight breeze. This buffing process smooths out any microscopic burrs left by the engraving tools, ensuring that the final instrument will feel as flawless to the touch as it is accurate to the eye. Every movement is done with an abundance of patience, a deep understanding that the true quality of a masterpiece lies in the details that most people will never notice. The astronomer works with the knowledge that this astrolabe will outlive him, passing through the hands of future generations of scholars, navigators, and dreamers who will look up at the same stars and find their way using the lines he is carving tonight. This thought brings a profound sense of purpose and calm, connecting his solitary labor to the grand, unfolding history of human discovery. In this quiet chamber, surrounded by the weight of ancient knowledge and the comforting sense of the earth, the frantic pace of daily life is entirely forgotten. There is only the lamp, the cedar, and the beautiful, orderly progression of the work. Sleepy History with Arthur is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. It is here, within these imagined moments of quiet historical devotion, that we can find a true refuge for our thoughts, allowing our minds to drift into a deep, restorative rest, while wrapped in the comforting embrace of a peaceful, timeless sanctuary. The rhythmic shushing of the linen-wrapped pumice stone continues to fill the lower chamber with its gentle, wave-like murmur, creating a soothing soundscape that deepens the absolute tranquility of the night. The astronomer moves his hand in wide, slow circles across the face of the cedar disc, ensuring that every square inch receives the same meticulous attention. Under this gentle friction, the natural grain of the cedar begins to glow with a soft, semi-matte luster, catching the amber light of the oil lamp in a way that makes the etched lines and letters appear to float on a sea of warm gold. The quiet satisfaction of this repetitive work fills the space, reinforcing the feeling of safety and seclusion that defines this subterranean workshop. The thick adobe walls seem to absorb every sound, preventing even the softest echo from escaping or entering, sealing the astronomer and his visitor within a timeless pocket of pure concentration. The air remains heavily perfumed with the sweet, clean aroma of the fresh wood, combined with the rich, steady scent of the burning sesame oil, creating a deeply grounding atmosphere that invites the mind to let go of all external concerns. The astronomer stops his circular motions, his hand coming to a gentle rest on the edge of the workbench. He lifts the cedar disc, holding it up to the level of his eyes, tilting it toward the lamp to inspect the uniformity of the finish. The light glides across the smooth surface, highlighting the perfect, deep grooves of the concentric rings and the sharp, elegant curves of the Arabic calligraphy. Satisfied with the results, he places the disc down and reaches for a small earthenware jar stoppered with a piece of rolled cloth. This jar contains a special blend of purified linseed oil and dissolved beeswax, a traditional varnish used to protect the wood from the moisture of the nighttime air during actual observations. He removes the stopper, and a new layer of scent enters the room, a rich, deep, and slightly sweet aroma that blends perfectly with the existing fragrance of the cedar. He pours a few drops of the golden oil directly onto a fresh piece of clean woolen cloth, then begins to rub it into the wood. The sound changes once more to a soft, slick sliding, a wet rustle that signifies the transformation of the raw material into a finished, durable tool. As the oil penetrates the wood fibers, the color of the cedar deepens instantly, shifting from a pale reddish-brown to a dark, rich, amber-toned mahogany color that brings out the intricate patterns of the grain with stunning clarity. The astronomer works the oil deep into the engraved lines, using a small pointed bone tool to push the cloth into the crevices of each letter and numeral. This process is slow and requires a delicate touch, ensuring that the oil is distributed evenly without pooling in the delicate carvings. The repetitive, fluid nature of this task provides a profound sense of mental relaxation, allowing the thoughts to drift like clouds across a calm sky. In this room there is no pressure to achieve, no race against time, and no judgment. There is only the quiet, beautiful reality of a physical object being cared for and perfected by human hands. The world outside, with its grand politics and bustling markets, feels like a distant dream, completely irrelevant to the pure, mathematical truth being preserved in this quiet corner of Samarkand. The astronomer continues to guide the oiled cloth over the cedar, his movement synchronous with his slow, deep breathing, projecting an aura of complete contentment and eternal patience that fills the entire room with a deep sense of peace. The deep, resonant purr of the oiled cloth sliding over the seasoned cedar wood continues to weave its hypnotic spell throughout the quiet lower chamber. With every slow, deliberate stroke, the astronomer breathes life into the instrument, watching as the wood matrix drinks in the golden liquid, darkening to a magnificent, deep amber hue that shimmers like silk beneath the oil lamp's unchanging flame. The atmosphere in this subterranean laboratory is heavy, with a sense of profound reverence, a sacred, quiet dialogue between the raw materials of the earth and the infinite architecture of the cosmos. The thick, insulating adobe walls stand firm against the passing hours, ensuring that the utter silence of the Samarkand night remains unbroken and pristine. The aroma within the room has evolved into an incredibly rich and comforting sensory tapestry. The sharp, clean, high notes of fresh cedar shavings are now beautifully grounded by the heavy, warm bass notes of linseed oil and the sweet, honeyed scent of melted beeswax. This complex perfume fills your senses with every slow inhalation, dissolving the final vestiges of tension within your body and grounding you completely in this cozy, intellectual sanctuary. The astronomer works with a calmness that can only be born from a lifetime of studying things that do not change, the fixed positions of the stars, the predictable cycles of the moon, and the mathematical constants that govern the turning of the earth. He knows that his time on this world is but a brief flash compared to the eternal lives of the stars he maps. Yet this realization does not bring sadness. Instead, it brings a deep, comforting sense of relief, a reminder that he is part of a grand, orderly design that far exceeds the small anxieties of daily human existence. He takes a clean, dry piece of wool and begins the final buffing process, polishing the oiled surface until it achieves a brilliant, mirror-like finish that reflects the tiny, dancing flame of the oil lamp with crystal clarity. The sound softens further into a rhythmic, velvety whisper, the sound of pure completion of a long journey reaching its peaceful destination. Every tiny circle his hand describes on the wood brings a deeper level of physical and mental stillness to the room, inviting anyone who watches to let go of their thoughts and sink into the profound restorative depths of a quiet mind. The absolute isolation of this space feels like a gentle protective shield, keeping the outside world at a comfortable distance while you rest within the golden circle of the lamp's glow. Sleepy History with Arthur combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. In this space, the boundaries of time fade away, leaving only the beautiful reality of a quiet room, a dedicated craftsman, and the comforting assurance that the universe is unfolding exactly as it should, providing a perfect, timeless cradle for your deep and peaceful slumber. The velvety whisper of the dry wool cloth against the polished cedar finally slows to a gentle stop, leaving the main plate of the astrolabe resting on the heavy workbench like a pool of dark liquid honey. The astronomer gently sets the cloth aside, his hands moving with that same deliberate, unhurried grace that has guided his every action throughout this long, silent night. He takes a deep, quiet breath, expanding his chest as he fills his lungs with the deeply comforting, complex aroma of resinous cedar, sweet linseed oil, and the soft, nutty scent of the burning oil lamp. This room is a fortress of absolute peace, a sacred space where the relentless forward march of the outside world has no power, and where the mind can truly anchor itself in the soothing beauty of focused, methodical creation. If you are feeling the gentle embrace of this ancient sanctuary, finding comfort in the rhythmic sounds of historical craftsmanship, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and drop a thoughtful comment below. Your quiet presence and support help keep this peaceful, time-traveling haven alive for weary minds everywhere. Now the astronomer turns his attention to a small, separate block of dark walnut wood that rests near the edge of the lamp's golden circle of illumination. This smaller piece will become the alidade, the rotating sight arm of the astrolabe that allows a scholar to align the instrument with a specific star in the night sky and read its precise altitude directly from the engraved outer rim. He picks up a small, fine-toothed hand saw with a beautifully carved bone handle. Its blade forged from flexible high-carbon steel. He places the teeth of the blade against a marked line on the walnut block, stabilizing the wood with the steady pressure of his left hand. Listen closely as he begins the cut. A low, rhythmic rasping fills the silent room, a comforting, repetitive sound that speaks of direct, honest labor. The sound is incredibly grounding, a steady, mechanical heartbeat that matches the slow, natural cadence of his breathing. With every forward and backward stroke, a tiny stream of dark, purplish-brown walnut dust tumbles quietly onto the workbench, adding a new, slightly bitter and earthy note to the aromatic air of the workshop. The astronomer applies almost no downward pressure, letting the weight of the saw and the razor-sharp teeth do the work, ensuring that the cut remains perfectly vertical and true to the line. He understands that impatience is the enemy of accuracy, and that the beautiful, unhurried passage of time is his greatest ally in creating an instrument that will endure for centuries. The repetitive sound of the saw creates a hypnotic auditory focus, clearing away any remaining fragments of mental clutter and drawing your awareness completely into the warmth and safety of this subterranean room. The thick, protective adobe walls continue to stand as silent guardians, insulating this peaceful meditation from the vast, sleeping expanse of Samarkand above, creating an oasis of quiet logic and deep satisfaction where you can simply exist, fully relaxed, wrapped in the comforting assurance of eternal order and the soothing rhythm of a master artisan's hands. The rhythmic rasping of the fine-toothed hand saw comes to a soft, natural conclusion as the blade slips cleanly through the final fibers of the dark walnut block with a quiet, satisfying snap. The astronomer lays the saw gently upon the felt cloth, its high-carbon steel blade ringing out with a faint, musical chime that hangs in the silent air for a brief moment before dissolving into the deep stillness of the room. He picks up the newly separated piece of walnut, a slender rectangular bar that will soon become the precise sighting mechanism of the astrolabe. He runs his thumb along the freshly cut edge, feeling the rough texture of the severed wood fibers, a stark contrast to the glass-like smoothness of the polished cedar plate resting nearby. The air in the workshop remains wonderfully thick and comforting, a rich blend of spicy cedar, earthy walnut, and the mellow, warm scent of the burning sesame oil that keeps the shadows dancing lazily across the curved adobe ceiling. This room feels entirely removed from the concept of modern time, existing as a permanent sanctuary where the only true currency is patience and the quiet pursuit of mathematical perfection. The astronomer reaches for a small, flat file made of hardened iron, its surface covered in hundreds of tiny hand-cut teeth designed to shave away minuscule amounts of wood with absolute control. He braces the walnut bar against a wooden peg set into the edge of his workbench, positions the file at a slight angle, and begins to draw it forward across the rough edge. A new sound fills the chamber, a steady, rhythmic, rasping whisper that repeats with a beautiful, hypnotic regularity. Shh. S-H-H-H-H-H. The sound is incredibly grounding, a continuous pattern of physical effort and release that mimics the natural flow of a gentle tide pulling away from a shoreline. With each forward stroke of the iron file, a fine mist of dark walnut powder settles onto the table, smoothing out the rough marks left by the saw and revealing the straight, true line beneath. The astronomer's eyes are locked on the tool, his face illuminated by the steady amber glow of the oil lamp, showing an expression of complete, unbothered tranquility. He does not rush. He knows that the accuracy of the alidade determines the accuracy of the entire instrument, and that a single degree of error on this small bar could misidentify a star by millions of miles in the vastness of the heavens. This deep sense of responsibility translates into a beautiful flowing movement of his arms and hands, an economy of motion that only comes from decades of dedicated practice. The absolute silence of the subterranean workshop wraps around him like a heavy protective cloak, shielding this quiet act of creation from the political upheavals, the economic shifts, and the fleeting trends of the world above. In this room, surrounded by the heavy weight of ancient scrolls and the cold, reassuring presence of brass quadrants, you can feel your own spirit settling into a state of deep, undisturbed rest. The repetitive SHHR of the file acts as a gentle metronome for your mind, slowing down your heartbeat and inviting your thoughts to drift away, leaving you entirely safe, warm and secure within this beautiful lamplit haven of historical devotion. The steady, rhythmic whisper of the iron file gradually softens as the astronomer lightens his touch, transitioning from shaping the dark walnut bar to achieving a perfectly straight, uniform surface. He lifts the slender piece of wood up to the light of the oil lamp, squinting one eye to check the alignment against the true horizon of his workbench. Satisfied with the straightness of the piece, he places it flat on the table and reaches for a small, delicate drill called a bow drill. This ancient tool consists of a small wooden bow strung with a leather thong wrapped around a central spindle tipped with a sharp, hand-forged iron bit. He places the point of the bit at the exact mathematical center of the walnut bar, where it will eventually connect to the pivot pin of the astrolabe. He rests his left hand on a wooden cap at the top of the spindle to apply steady downward pressure, while his right hand moves the bow back and forth in a smooth, soaring motion. The spindle begins to spin rapidly, and a completely unique sound fills the quiet chamber. A low, melodic hum, accompanied by a rhythmic click-clack of the leather thong moving against the wood. Whir-clack, whir-clack, whir-clack. The sound is deeply comforting, a mechanical lullaby that resonates through the thick adobe walls of the workshop. As the iron bit sinks deeper into the walnut, a tiny spiral of dark wood shavings emerges from the hole, spinning upward like a miniature vine. The friction of the drilling generates a localized warmth, releasing a sudden, concentrated puff of the walnut's rich, earthy aroma into the air, which mingles delightfully with the ever-present sweet fragrance of the cedar and the burning oil lamp. The astronomer's body moves with effortless coordination, his torso remaining perfectly still while his arm guides the bow in long, measured strokes. This level of physical control is a reflection of his internal state, a mind that is entirely quiet, free from the distractions of ambition or regret, fully anchored in the immediate physical reality of the work. The absolute silence of the surrounding chambers acts as a protective shield, keeping the chaotic noise of human history completely at bay. In this room, the only thing that matters is the perfect alignment of the hole being drilled, a tiny point of space that will allow the completed instrument to measure the vastness of the cosmos. The repetitive humming of the bow drill creates a powerful sense of mental security, inviting your thoughts to let go of their hold on the modern world and dissolve into the peaceful ancient rhythm of the workshop. You can feel the heavy warmth of the room pressing gently against your skin, wrapping you in a cocoon of safety, comfort, and deep intellectual satisfaction as the astronomer continues his quiet labor under the unchanging glow of the amber lamp. The melodic hum of the bow drill slows down to a gentle, deliberate cadence as the sharp iron bit cuts through the final layer of the dark walnut bar, creating a clean, perfect central pivot hole with a soft, hollow click. The astronomer sets the bow drill down on his workbench, his hands moving with that innate, fluid grace that comes from a life spent in deep harmony with his tools and materials. He takes a long, slow breath, pulling the deeply comforting, complex aroma of freshly drilled walnut, resinous cedar, and sweet burning oil deep into his lungs. This underground laboratory is an oasis of absolute stillness, a rare sanctuary where the frantic demands of the outside world simply cease to exist, allowing the mind to rest completely within the soothing beauty of patience and methodical creation. If you are experiencing a profound sense of relaxation in this ancient workshop, feeling the gentle comfort of these historical sounds, please take a quick moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share your peaceful thoughts in the comments section. Your wonderful support keeps this quiet sanctuary open for everyone seeking a restful escape. Now, the astronomer reaches for a tiny, razor-sharp knife with a pointed blade made of laminated steel, designed for the intricate work of cutting the sight holes at each end of the walnut arm. These two holes must be perfectly identical and aligned with absolute mathematical precision, as they are the channels through which the light of a distant star will travel to reach the eye of the observer. He marks the positions with his fine steel scribe, then presses the tip of the knife into the dark wood. Listen closely to the quiet sound that follows. A tiny, crisp clicking fills the silent air as the blade slices across the grain, lifting out minuscule chips of walnut wood. Click, chip, click. The sound is incredibly delicate and rhythmic, a beautiful manifestation of human focus working on a microscopic scale. The astronomer holds his breath slightly during the most critical cuts, his entire body locking into a state of statuesque stillness while his fingers guide the blade with the absolute confidence of a master. The small pile of purplish shavings at his fingertips grows atom by atom, releasing faint, fresh bursts of earthy scent that mingle with the warm, heavy fragrance of the oil lamp. The thick adobe walls continue to hold back the weight of the sleeping city above, ensuring that not a single vibration or sound from the modern world can enter this sacred space of intellectual devotion. The steady, watery drip of the clock in the distance remains the only other voice in the room, marking the deep hours of the night with its gentle, unhurried precision. In this room, surrounded by ancient scrolls and the golden glow of the lamp, you can feel your own mind slipping into a state of deep, unshakable security, mirroring the perfect order and patience of the craftsman's hands as he continues his timeless work under the stars. The delicate clicking of the small knife against the walnut wood continues to serve as the gentle heartbeat of this secluded underground room, marking the slow, beautiful passage of the midnight hours. The astronomer carefully carves the second sighting aperture, ensuring that the inner walls of the tiny channel are perfectly vertical and free of any loose fibers that could scatter the incoming starlight. With a final, microscopic slice, the chip falls away, leaving two flawless parallel channels traversing the ends of the dark wood arm. The astronomer lays the carving knife aside and takes a slow, deep breath, letting the warm, rich air of the workshop wash over him. The atmosphere inside this subterranean space has achieved a perfect equilibrium of comfort. The rich, heavy aromas of linseed oil, cedar wood, and burning sesame oil have blended into a single, deeply grounding fragrance that feels like an ancient memory made physical. He reaches for a small piece of dried shark skin, an ancient precursor to sandpaper known for its highly abrasive yet uniform texture, and wraps it around his index finger. He begins to smooth the outer contours of the walnut alidade, moving his hand in long, rhythmic strokes that produce a soft, rushing whisper. Shh, 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 shh. The sound is incredibly repetitive and soothing, like the sound of a steady breeze passing through a field of ripening wheat under a wide open sky. With every stroke, the rough geometry of the walnut bar softens, its edges becoming rounded and ergonomic, designed to fit comfortably between the thumb and forefinger of an observer standing in the midnight cold of the observatory's upper terrace. The astronomer works with a profound sense of ease, his mind entirely decoupled from the concept of rushing or completion. For him, the process of refinement is just as valuable as the finished instrument itself. Each stroke of the abrasive skin a conscious act of appreciation for the materials provided by the earth. The thick adobe walls of the chamber continue their silent, protective vigil, absorbing the soft rushing sound of the shark skin and keeping the external world completely at bay. Above, the city of Samarkand remains locked in its deep slumber, its inhabitants dreaming beneath the massive blue domes while the celestial sphere rotates silently overhead. In this room, the boundaries between the macrocosm of the stars and the microcosm of the workshop seem to dissolve entirely. You can feel your own awareness expanding and settling, matching the slow oceanic rhythm of the craftsman's movements. The repetitive SSHH of the abrasive skin acts as a gentle anchor for your thoughts, drawing you deeper into a state of absolute relaxation, security, and warm golden comfort within this timeless sanctuary of historical dedication. The soft, rushing whisper of the dried shark skin against the dark walnut bar gradually transitions into a smooth, silent glide as the surface achieves a state of flawless, satin perfection. The astronomer gently brushes away the microscopic dark wood dust with the tip of his fingers. Feeling the cool, uniform texture of the refined alidade, he places the walnut arm next to the large, circular cedar plate on the heavy oak workbench, looking at the two components side by side under the steady amber glow of the oil lamp. The contrast between the rich, reddish-brown cedar and the deep, purplish-black walnut is visually striking, a beautiful harmony of natural materials that reflects the structural balance of the cosmos itself. The air in the workshop remains thick, warm, and profoundly comforting, saturated with the complex perfume of resinous cedar, earthy walnut, and the sweet, honeyed scent of the beeswax varnish. This subterranean room is a fortress of absolute stillness, a rare space where the chaotic movements of human history are completely locked out by the massive insulating adobe walls. The astronomer now prepares to create the crucial connection point between the two pieces, the heavy brass pivot pin that will hold the alidade securely against the face of the astrolabe, while allowing it to rotate with absolute smoothness. He reaches into a small wooden drawer beneath his workbench and pulls out a solid cylinder of cast brass, roughly the thickness of a man's thumb. This brass was melted and cast in the foundries of Samarkand, alloyed with a small amount of lead to make it easier to turn and shape by hand. He places the brass cylinder into a heavy, iron-jawed hand vise, tightening the screw until the metal is held with an unyielding grip. He selects a broad, flat metal file with coarse, diamond-cut teeth, designed to rapidly shave down hard alloys. He braces his stance, positions the file against the end of the brass cylinder and applies a firm, forward pressure. A new sound breaks the silence of the chamber, a deep, resonant, metallic rasp that echoes with a heavy, satisfying cadence. Kra, kra, kra. The sound has a powerful, grounding weight to it, a masculine note of industrial effort that cuts through the organic softness of the wood sounds. With every forward stroke of the file, a tiny shower of bright golden brass filings tumbles onto the dark workbench, gathering in a small shimmering pile that catches the light of the oil lamp like a handful of fallen stars. The astronomer works with a steady, unhurried power, his shoulders moving in a fluid, circular rhythm that minimizes fatigue and maximizes control. He does not force the tool. He allows the cold iron teeth to bite into the brass at their own natural pace, understanding that working with metal requires a different kind of patience than working with wood. The repetitive, heavy rhythm of the filing creates a deeply hypnotic state of mind, drawing your thoughts away from the complexities of the modern world and anchoring them firmly in the physical reality of this ancient laboratory. The thick adobe walls continue to stand as silent sentinels, ensuring that this sacred act of creation remains entirely undisturbed, creating a cozy cocoon of warmth, safety, and deep intellectual satisfaction where you can fully relax, letting your mind drift peacefully on the steady rhythmic currents of historical craftsmanship. The deep, resonant rasp of the coarse metal file begins to give way to a lighter, more musical tone as the astronomer switches to a finer-cut iron file to complete the shaping of the brass pivot pin. The sound becomes a steady, rhythmic hiss, a clean metallic whisper that repeats with a comforting and predictable regularity. Shink, hesse shink, hesse shink. With each deft stroke, the golden brass cylinder is transformed, its rough, cast exterior shaved away to reveal a perfectly round, smooth shaft that will slide into the central holes of the cedar plate and the walnut alidade with absolute precision. The small pile of golden filings beneath the hand vise grows denser, reflecting the warm, unchanging amber glow of the oil lamp like a scattering of cosmic dust on the dark oak workbench. The air in the lower chamber remains wonderfully thick and cozy, a rich and intoxicating sensory mixture where the heavy metallic tang of the shaved brass blends seamlessly with the sweet, resinous fragrance of the cedar wood and the mellow, nutty scent of the burning sesame oil. This subterranean workshop feels entirely frozen in time, a permanent sanctuary where the frantic worries and loud disruptions of the external world have no meaning and no entry. The astronomer guides the file with a hand that possesses the absolute stability of a stone monument, his dark eyes focused entirely on the microscopic line where the iron meets the brass. He knows that the fit of this pin must be flawless. If it is too loose, the alidade will wobble, introducing errors into the calculation of star altitudes, and if it is too tight, the scholar will not be able to rotate the sight arm smoothly during the freezing hours of a midnight observation. This commitment to perfection is not driven by fear or anxiety, but by a deep, quiet love for the truth of the universe, a desire to create an instrument that is as reliable and orderly as the celestial spheres themselves. The absolute silence of the surrounding adobe walls wraps around this scene like a heavy velvet blanket, absorbing the soft SSH hink of the file and creating a space of profound safety and mental peace. There are no deadlines here, no pressures from the courts of kings or the demands of merchants, only the pure, beautiful reality of a craftsman working in perfect harmony with his materials. As you watch the steady, unhurried rhythm of his arms, you can feel your own mind letting go of its modern burdens, sinking deeper and deeper into a state of warm comfort and undisturbed rest, fully protected within this beautiful, lamp-lit haven of ancient science. The musical hissing of the fine iron file slows down to an occasional deliberate touch as the astronomer finalizes the diameter of the brass pivot pin. He releases the golden cylinder from the heavy iron-jawed hand vise, the metallic click of the screw echoing softly within the thick adobe walls before being swallowed by the deep, comforting silence of the chamber. He lifts the pin up to the steady amber glow of the oil lamp, rolling it between his fingers to check its roundness and smoothness by touch alone, his skin attuned to the slightest structural irregularity. He then picks up the slender walnut alidade and gently slides the brass pin through the central hole he drilled earlier. It slips into place with a soft, airtight hiss, a perfect mechanical marriage with absolutely no play or wobble, yet loose enough to allow for effortless rotation. A quiet, satisfied breath escapes the astronomer's lips, a silent acknowledgement of a difficult task executed with flawless precision. The air in the workshop remains warm and profoundly soothing, saturated with the rich aromatic tapestry of resinous cedar, earthy walnut, metallic brass filings, and the sweet, steady fragrance of the burning sesame oil lamp. This subterranean room remains a complete fortress of tranquility, an unchanging space where the passage of time is measured not by clocks or calendars, but by the beautiful, gradual progression of a master artisan's labor. The astronomer now places the brass pin, still carrying the walnut arm, over the central hole of the massive circular cedar plate. With a gentle downward pressure of his palm, he slides the pin through the cedar. The pieces come together with a dull, hollow thud that resonates deeply through the thick oak workbench. The main components of the astronomical instrument are now joined, transformed from raw blocks of forest wood and mined ore into a cohesive functional unit designed to map the infinite heavens. The astronomer rests his fingers on the tip of the walnut alidade and gives it a gentle push. Listen as it moves. A soft, continuous wood-on-wood sliding sound fills the quiet room, a gentle rhythmic whir that sounds like a sleepy breath drawn in the darkness. Shh. You? Esse Seishu. The walnut arm sweeps smoothly across the engraved face of the cedar plate, its carved sight holes passing precisely over the concentric rings and elegant Arabic calligraphy etched into the red-brown wood. The motion is incredibly fluid, a testament to the hours spent burnishing, oiling, and filing each individual part in the complete isolation of this underground sanctuary. The astronomer repeats the motion, rotating the arm back and forth, checking its alignment against the meridian lines at every quadrant. Each sweep of the alidade produces that same comforting, repetitive whisper, a mechanical lullaby that echoes the majestic, silent rotation of the actual stars above the observatory's dome. The absolute stillness of the lower chamber wraps tightly around this rhythmic motion, providing a deep sense of mental security and peace that allows all external worries to fade into nothingness. In this room, you are completely safe and insulated from the chaotic noise of the outer world, invited to simply rest and let your mind float on the steady, soothing currents of this ancient lamplit dedication to the cosmos. The continuous wood-on-wood sliding of the walnut alidade against the polished cedar plate fills the underground workshop with its deeply satisfying rhythmic whisper, a sound that seems to echo the timeless dance of the constellations across the desert sky. The astronomer watches the pointer glide effortlessly over the engraved degrees, his fingers guiding the movement with a touch so gentle it barely disturbs the thin film of oil coating the wood. Every rotation is smooth and true, confirming that the intensive labor of the past hours has yielded a perfectly calibrated instrument of science. The atmosphere within the subterranean chamber remains incredibly warm, cozy, and protective, an isolated bubble of pure intellect and peace, buried deep beneath the slumbering streets of Samarkand. The air is rich and heavy with the comforting, therapeutic perfume of resinous cedar shavings, earthy walnut dust, polished brass, and the sweet, steady burning of the sesame oil lamp in the corner. This complex aroma acts as a powerful anchor for the senses, pushing away all thoughts of the past or the future, leaving only the pure, undistorted reality of the present moment. The astronomer slows the rotation of the alidade, bringing it to a gentle rest along the central meridian line. He leans back slightly on his wooden stool, allowing his arms to relax at his sides, his eyes gazing thoughtfully into the soft, flickering amber shadows that dance across the textured adobe walls. He looks at his workbench, seeing the tools of his creation laid out in their neat, orderly rows, the chisels, the files, the scribes, and the bow drill, each one having played its essential part in transforming raw materials into a tool of cosmic understanding. He feels a deep, quiet satisfaction, the profound joy of a craftsman who has poured his mind and his hands into an object of lasting beauty and utility. The absolute silence of the room returns, a heavy, comforting stillness that wraps around him like a protective cloak, shielding this sacred space from the chaotic flow of human events outside. Above these thick walls, the vast empire of the Silk Road rests in total darkness, its grand minarets and quiet courtyards bathed in the silver light of the crescent moon, completely oblivious to the quiet masterpiece that has just been brought to life in the depths of the observatory. In this room, surrounded by the weight of ancient manuscripts and the reassuring presence of scientific instruments, you can feel your own mind settling into a state of deep, unshakable tranquility. The worries of the modern world feel incredibly distant, completely irrelevant to the timeless mathematical truth resting on the dark oak table. You are entirely safe here, wrapped in the warm, golden comfort of this intellectual sanctuary, as the astronomer takes a slow, deep breath, savoring the quiet completion of his work and preparing his mind for the final, delicate assembly of the astrolabe. The astronomer rests in his quiet contemplation, his breathing deep and even perfectly mirroring the profound stillness that dominates the lower chambers of the Samarkand observatory. The heavy oak workbench before him holds the near-complete wooden astrolabe, its dark walnut arm perfectly aligned with the red-brown cedar meridian line under the steady amber glow of the oil lamp. After a few minutes of restful silence, the craftsman moves again, his hands reaching toward a small brass washer and an ornamental cotter pin shaped like a tiny, stylized crescent moon. This decorative pin, known traditionally as the horse or wedge, is the final structural component needed to lock the entire assembly together, ensuring that the central brass pivot remains completely secure during transport and intensive field use. He picks up a pair of small, hand-forged iron pliers from the dark felt tray, their smooth jaws designed to bend metal without leaving unsightly scratches on the polished surfaces. The air in the workshop remains incredibly comforting and thick, filled with the rich, therapeutic aroma of resinous wood, sweet linseed oil, and the soft, nutty fragrance of the burning sesame lamp. This subterranean room continues to serve as an absolute fortress against the outside world, a place where the noise of empires and markets cannot penetrate, providing an oasis of total safety and quiet logic. The astronomer positions the brass washer over the protruding end of the pivot pin on the back of the cedar plate, then slides the tiny crescent moon wedge into a microscopic slot cut through the tip of the brass shaft. He takes the iron pliers and gently presses the ends of the wedge, locking it into place with a crisp metallic click that cuts through the silence of the room. Tink. The sound is sharp, clear, and immensely satisfying, a definitive note of mechanical completion that signals the birth of a finished instrument. The astronomer sets the pliers down with a soft thud, his hands coming to rest on the edge of the table. As he looks down at the completed astrolabe, he lifts the entire instrument by its heavy bronze suspension ring, holding it up so that it hangs freely in the air, exactly as a scholar would hold it while standing beneath the night sky to measure the stars. The instrument balances perfectly, hanging straight and true, a flawless marriage of geometry, metallurgy, and woodcraft. The warm light of the oil lamp plays across its polished surfaces, catching the golden brass filings that still dust the table, creating a miniature galaxy of light that mirrors the grand cosmos outside. The absolute stillness of the room wraps around this moment of triumph, transforming it into a quiet, deeply personal meditation on the power of human patience and intellect. In this room, surrounded by ancient scrolls and the protective embrace of thick adobe walls, You can feel your own thoughts slowing down to match the absolute peace of the scene. There are no more cuts to make, no more lines to engrave, and no more metals to file. The work is done, the order has been created, and the mind can finally drift away into a state of total undisturbed rest, completely secure in the timeless sanctuary of this ancient workshop. The completed astrolabe hangs suspended from the astronomer's steady fingers, balancing with absolute geometric perfection in the warm, golden air of the subterranean workshop. For several long, silent minutes, the master craftsman simply holds the instrument, letting his eyes trace the elegant intersection of the dark walnut alidade, the rich red-brown cedar plate, and the tiny brass crescent moon wedge that locks the entire microcosm together. The profound silence of the lower chamber rushes back to fill the void left by the final metallic click of construction, wrapping around the room like a heavy protective blanket that dampens all earthly worries. The atmosphere within this underground laboratory remains beautifully thick, cozy, and comforting, heavily saturated with the magnificent aromatic blend of fresh cedar shavings, earthy walnut powder, polished metal, and the sweet, steady fragrance of the burning sesame oil lamp. This room is a total sanctuary of peace, an unchanging pocket of historical devotion where the frantic chaos and loud demands of the outside world have been completely neutralized by the thick, insulating adobe walls. The astronomer gently lowers the astrolabe back onto a soft piece of dark velvet cloth spread across his workbench, handling it with the immense care one reserves for a sacred object. He leans forward, his face illuminated by the steady amber flame, and uses a soft camel hair brush to perform one final, meticulous cleaning of the instrument's face. The brush moves in long, fluid sweeps, creating a soft, rhythmic whispering sound that relaxes the mind and slows the heart. Shh! SSH, SSH. With each pass of the fine bristles, the microscopic particles of wood dust and brass filings are swept away, revealing the immaculate clarity of the engraved degrees and the sharp, flowing lines of the Arabic calligraphy. The astronomer works with a deep, unshakable sense of calm, his movements slow and deliberate, showing absolutely no desire to rush or move on to another task. He is entirely content to remain within this golden circle of light, savoring the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. The absolute isolation of this space feels like a gentle protective shield, keeping the entire universe at a comfortable distance while you rest within the warmth of the laboratory. Above these deep walls, the great city of Samarkand continues its deep midnight slumber, its bustling bazaars completely quiet, and its grand turquoise domes reflecting the cold silver light of the stars. In this room, surrounded by the heavy weight of ancient mathematical manuscripts and the reassuring presence of brass quadrants, you can feel your own thoughts gently unspooling, letting go of every modern tension and anxiety. The repetitive whispering rhythm of the camel hair brush acts as a perfect metronome for your mind, inviting your spirit to sink deeper and deeper into a state of profound relaxation, warmth, and complete mental security, wrapped in the comforting assurance that the universe is governed by eternal, beautiful laws. The incredibly soft, whisper-thin scratching of the camel hair brush across the polished face of the astrolabe gradually slows down until it ceases entirely, leaving the completed instrument resting quietly upon its velvet bed like a dark, glittering treasure found deep within the earth. The astronomer gently places the bone-handled brush back into its designated leather pouch on the workbench, his hand lingering for a brief moment on the smooth, cool leather, as if absorbing the finality of the physical labor. He sits perfectly still on his low wooden stool, letting his shoulders drop completely, allowing all the remaining muscular tension from the long hours of precise craftsmanship to dissolve into the deep, welcoming silence of the underground laboratory. The air in this subterranean chamber remains profoundly thick, warm, and deeply comforting, an exquisite aromatic sanctuary where the spicy sweetness of aged cedar and the dark, earthy richness of carved walnut are perfectly bound together by the heavy, soothing scent of pure linseed oil and the soft honeyed perfume of warm beeswax. Underneath these rich wooden fragrances lies the steady, unchanging nutty aroma of the burning sesame oil from the brass lamp, which continues to cast its warm amber glow across the dark oak workbench, illuminating the exquisite lines of the instrument while leaving the distant corners of the room wrapped in soft, protective shadows. This entire space feels completely detached from the linear progression of time, existing as a permanent island of quiet logic, peace, and intellectual devotion buried deep beneath the massive, insulating adobe walls that hold back the chaotic movements of human history. The astronomer looks at his hands, which are lightly stained with the dark walnut juice and the golden oil of the varnish, seeing in the creases of his skin the physical record of a night spent in service to the grand design of the cosmos. He reaches out with a slow, deliberate movement and lifts the small earthenware jar of fresh, pure spring water that sits at the corner of his desk, taking a slow, cool sip that refreshes his throat and brings a deep sense of internal clarity. He lets the water sit on his tongue for a moment, savoring its simple, clean neutrality, a perfect contrast to the rich, complex sensory environment of the workshop. As he sets the jar back down with a soft, muted thud against the wood, he tilts his head upward, his dark eyes gazing at the heavy, curved timber beams that reinforce the adobe ceiling above him, imagining the immense weight of the earth and the city of Samarkand resting safely above his head, creating a magnificent fortress of absolute security and isolation. In this quiet room, surrounded by the heavy weight of ancient astronomical scrolls, cold bronze quadrants, and the gentle rhythmic dripping of the distant water clock, there is absolutely no pressure to achieve anything more, no race against an artificial deadline, and no noise from the outside world. The frantic pace of daily life, with its political struggles, commercial anxieties, and fleeting social trends, is completely irrelevant within this golden circle of lamplight, where the only true reality is the perfect, unchanging order of the mathematical constants carved into the cedar disc. The astronomer breathes out a long, quiet sigh of complete contentment, a soft sound that seems to merge perfectly with the deep stillness of the room, inviting anyone who rests within this space to let go of their thoughts entirely. You can feel the heavy, protective warmth of the laboratory wrapping gently around your body like a thick, handmade wool blanket, slowing down your heartbeat and smoothing out the fragmented edges of your mind. The absolute silence of the subterranean sanctuary acts as a shield against the vastness of the world, creating a cozy, safe cocoon where your thoughts can drift away like morning mist over a calm mountain lake. Above, the stars continue their silent, majestic rotation across the deep indigo sky of Central Asia, their positions perfectly mirrored by the lines on the workbench below, providing a profound, comforting assurance that everything in the universe is exactly where it belongs. Sand that you are completely safe, warm, and free to sink into a deep, restorative, and beautiful sleep within this timeless haven of historical peace. The absolute silence that follows the astronomer's long, content sigh deepens like the slow settling of winter snow over the mountains surrounding the fertile valley of Samarkand. He remains seated upon his low, robust stool of seasoned oak, his hands resting palms up on his thighs, fully immersing himself in the complete cessation of physical labor and the utter weightlessness of a mind that has accomplished its sacred purpose. The completed wooden astrolabe rests on its plush bed of deep indigo velvet, absorbing the steady golden radiance of the sesame oil lamp and reflecting it back into the warm shadows as a soft amber luminescence that seems to pulsate with a life of its own. Every etched numeral, every sweeping line of the celestial coordinates, and every fine curve of the Arabic calligraphy stands out with absolute crisp definition, a physical manifestation of perfect order born from the raw materials of the earth and the meticulous focus of human intellect. The air within this subterranean sanctuary remains wonderfully dense, cozy, and comforting, holding an almost tangible stillness that wraps around the senses like a thick hand-woven textile. The rich, multi-layered fragrance of the workshop has reached its absolute peak of maturation. The bright, crisp, resinous top notes of the newly cut cedar wood have fully integrated with the deep, musky, and grounded undertones of the dark walnut, while the sweet, clean aroma of the melted beeswax and the rich, toasted scent of the burning linseed oil create an incredibly soothing aromatic blanket that fills the lungs with each slow, effortless breath. This underground room, carved deep into the cool earth and reinforced with massive, hand-plastered adobe blocks, functions as an impenetrable fortress of tranquility, completely isolated from the relentless forward march of linear time and the chaotic, noisy patterns of the world above. Up on the surface of the earth, the great silk routes are quiet. The bustling markets of the Rajasthan are empty of their merchants and camels, and the massive turquoise-tiled domes of the great mosques sleep beneath the cold, majestic dome of the midnight sky, entirely unaware of the magnificent work of science that has been brought to fruition in this secret lamplight haven. The astronomer tilts his head slightly to the left, listening to the deeply comforting, hypnotic sound that has accompanied his work throughout the entire night. The slow, rhythmic and liquid dripping of the large clepsydra in the far corner of the laboratory. Drop, drop, drop. The sound is incredibly soft, a watery cadence that does not disrupt the silence but rather highlights its profound depth, acting as a natural metronome that gently coaxes the human heart to slow its rhythm to match the ancient, unhurried pace of the earth itself. He watches a single tiny particle of golden wood dust float lazily through the column of amber light illuminated by the lamp, its drifting, weightless journey embodying the total freedom from urgency that defines this sacred space. In this room, there are no deadlines to meet, no expectations to fulfill, no criticisms to fear, and no struggles to endure. There is only the pure, beautiful, and undeniable reality of structural harmony and intellectual peace. The craftsman's dark eyes look upon the finished astrolabe not with pride or possessiveness, but with a quiet, humble reverence for the universal laws that the instrument is designed to track, knowing that tomorrow this wooden creation will stand on the high terrace of the observatory, aligning human sight with stars that have burned for billions of years. This realization brings an immense, waves-like sense of relief and mental relaxation, a reminder that all individual worries, anxieties, and fleeting daily stresses are nothing more than tiny ripples on the surface of a vast, eternal, and perfectly ordered cosmic ocean. The heavy protective warmth of the adobe walls continues to press gently against your skin, grounding you completely in this safe, dark, and extraordinarily comfortable cocoon of historical dedication and quiet intelligence. You can feel your eyelids growing incredibly heavy, responding naturally to the absolute absence of tension, the soothing aromatic atmosphere, and the steady rhythmic dripping of the water clock. The boundaries of your thoughts begin to soften and expand, dissolving into the warm golden shadows of the room, leaving you entirely secure, perfectly warm and free to sink effortlessly into the deepest, most restorative and beautiful sleep. The rhythmic, liquid dripping of the large clepsydra in the far corner of the laboratory continues its timeless melody, a soft and constant drop, drop, drop that dissolves into the heavy, thick adobe walls of the subterranean sanctuary. The astronomer sits completely motionless on his low wooden stool, his broad shoulders relaxed and his eyes half closed as he bathes in the profound peace of the midnight hour. The completed astrolabe rests securely upon its thick bed of indigo velvet, its polished cedar face glowing like molten gold under the steady, unblinking eye of the brass sesame oil lamp. All around the workbench, the tools of the night's labor lie in silent, orderly repose, their metal edges catching faint glints of amber light, standing as quiet witnesses to a process of creation that has bridged the gap between raw, earthly matter and the infinite geometry of the heavens. The air within this underground fortress is incredibly warm, dense, and deeply comforting, holding an exquisite and therapeutic aroma that has settled over hours of careful work. The spicy, clean sweetness of fresh cedar shavings has fully merged with the deep, musky richness of the dark walnut alidade, while the top notes of melted beeswax and linseed oil cast a sweet, protective layer over the entire sensory environment. This room is an absolute haven of safety, completely cut off from the frantic pace, the loud political struggles, and the passing anxieties of the world above. Up on the surface of the earth, the massive blue-tiled minarets and expansive courtyards of Samarkand sleep deeply beneath the sprawling canopy of the cosmos, entirely oblivious to the quiet triumph of intellect that has just taken place within the roots of the observatory. The astronomer shifts his gaze slightly, watching the tiny dancing flame of the oil lamp as it consumes the clear sesame fluid drop by drop, its warmth radiating outward in gentle, silent waves that stroke the air and create a cozy cocoon of absolute security. He feels a deep, spiritual connection to the ancient scholars who sat in similar rooms centuries before him, men who asked the same questions, held the same copper and wooden instruments, and found the same unshakable solace in the predictable, elegant laws that govern the stars. This sense of historical continuity wraps around the room like an invisible heavy cloak, anchoring the mind in a reality that is vast, stable, and completely impervious to the small, fleeting stresses of daily human existence. The utter absence of sound from the outside world allows the brain to completely let go of its protective vigilance, realizing that within these thick, hand-plastered mud brick walls there is absolutely nothing to fear, no deadlines to meet, and no expectations to satisfy. The mind is permitted to become as still and clear as the mountain lakes of the Pamirs, reflecting only the beautiful golden light of the lamp and the geometric perfection of the finished astrolabe. The repetitive, watery cadence of the water clock acts as a gentle, hypnotic lullaby, slowing the pulse and drawing the breath deeper into the chest until every inhalation becomes an act of pure, effortless relaxation. You can feel the physical heavy warmth of the laboratory settling over your body like a dense, handmade wool comforter, grounding your weight and inviting your muscles to go entirely loose and limp against the support beneath you. The boundaries between your active thoughts and the serene stillness of the workshop begin to blur and fade away, leaving only a soft, floating awareness of safety, warmth, and complete intellectual contentment. The astronomer closes his eyes fully now, joining the room in its total sacred silence, leaving the beautifully calibrated instrument to watch over the remaining hours of the night. In this perfect lamplit cradle of history and science, your thoughts are free to drift away into the dark, quiet spaces between the stars, sinking effortlessly into a deep, restorative, and extraordinarily peaceful slumber. The total closure of the astronomer's eyes brings an even deeper sense of dark, enveloping quietude to the subterranean chamber, as if the very light from the brass sesame lamp has softened its intensity to accommodate his deep state of rest. The completed astrolabe remains on its indigo velvet cushion, a silent, perfect monument to an entire night of focused human devotion, its polished wooden grains and metallic fittings resting in a state of absolute unmoving equilibrium. The air in this underground sanctuary has become perfectly still, thick with the comforting, deeply therapeutic weight of a space that has not been disturbed by the outside world for generations. The rich, aromatic tapestry of the room continues to hang in the warm air, a magnificent olfactory symphony where the sharp, resinous sweetness of the cedar wood and the deep, earthy bitterness of the walnut are perfectly rounded out by the smooth, honeyed scent of the beeswax varnish and the warm, nutty aroma of the burning oil. This complex fragrance acts as a powerful, grounding balm for the nervous system, signaling to the deepest parts of the brain that this is a place of absolute safety, a fortress of pure logic and peace, where no external anxieties, no societal pressures, and no frantic schedules can ever hope to penetrate. The thick adobe walls, hand-formed from the clay of the valley and reinforced with straw, stand as silent, massive guardians against the passage of modern history, completely absorbing any stray vibrations from the sleeping city of Samarkand above, and creating an oasis of total isolation where the soul can simply exist without demand. The only voice remaining in the room is the rhythmic, hypnotic dripping of the great water clock in the corner, a soft liquid sound that marks the passage of the midnight hours with a predictable, comforting regularity. Drop, drop, drop. The sound feels like the slow, steady pulse of the earth itself, an ancient heartbeat that has no regard for the fleeting worries of human beings, inviting the mind to align its own rhythm with the vast, unhurried timeline of the cosmos. The astronomer breathes in slowly, his chest rising and falling in perfect synchronization with the watery cadence of the clepsydra, his hands remaining completely limp and loose upon his thighs as he experiences the profound, weightless luxury of absolute completion. He knows that his work is flawless, that every degree has been etched with mathematical truth, and that when the sun finally rises over the distant turquoise domes of the city, this instrument will be ready to chart the movements of the planets with absolute certainty. This absolute confidence allows his mind to completely let go of its analytical guard, dissolving the last remaining structures of active thought into the warm golden shadows that fill the room. The heavy, protective warmth of the laboratory presses gently against your skin, wrapping you in a cozy, secure cocoon of historical craftsmanship and intellectual peace that feels entirely removed from the stresses of the modern era. You can feel a profound wave-like relaxation washing over your entire body, starting from the crown of your head and flowing down through your shoulders, your arms, and your torso, releasing every tight muscle and allowing your physical form to sink heavily into the deep support beneath you. The boundaries of your awareness begin to drift and scatter like beautiful golden dust motes floating in the amber lamplight, leaving behind all words, all concepts, and all memories of the waking world. In this perfect, timeless sanctuary of science and silence, surrounded by the heavy weight of ancient scrolls and the protective embrace of the earth, you are completely safe, entirely warm, and profoundly at peace, free to sink effortlessly into the deepest, most restorative, and beautiful sleep imaginable. The quietude of the subterranean workshop deepens into a state of total, unchanging permanence, as if the heavy earth above has sealed this single room away from the flow of centuries entirely. The astronomer remains completely motionless on his low wooden stool, his breathing now so slow, soft, and shallow that it barely disturbs the thick, warm air surrounding his face. The completed astrolabe rests on its plush bed of deep indigo velvet, its polished cedar plate and dark walnut alidade catching the very last steady rays of the brass lamp, creating a soft halo of amber light that illuminates the exquisite mathematical engravings with a quiet, sacred clarity. Every tool on the long oak workbench has found its final perfect resting place, organized with the meticulous care of a scholar who treats his physical instruments as extensions of his own mind. The air inside this thick-walled adobe chamber remains wonderfully dense, heavy, and profoundly comforting, holding a deep and therapeutic aroma that has settled over many long hours of patient craftsmanship. The sharp, resinous sweetness of the fresh cedar wood has fully integrated with the deep, musky richness of the dark walnut, while the top notes of melted beeswax, linseed oil, and the sweet, nutty scent of burning sesame oil wrap around the room like a heavy, protective blanket. This underground fortress functions as an absolute sanctuary of safety, completely isolated from the frantic pace, the loud political struggles, and the passing anxieties of the world above. Up on the surface of the earth, the massive blue-tiled minarets, the vast courtyards, and the quiet residential quarters of Samarkand sleep deeply beneath the sprawling canopy of the cosmos, entirely oblivious to the quiet triumph of intellect that has just taken place within the deep roots of the observatory. The astronomer shifts his internal focus entirely away from the physical world, allowing his mind to float freely within the vast dark spaces that separate the stars, experiencing the true, weightless luxury of absolute completion. The only sound that remains to mark the passage of the midnight hours is the slow, rhythmic, and liquid dripping of the large clepsydra in the far corner of the laboratory. Drop, drop, drop. The sound is incredibly soft, a watery cadence that does not disrupt the silence, but rather highlights its profound depth, acting as a natural metronome that gently coaxes the human heart to slow its rhythm to match the ancient, unhurried pace of the earth itself. He watches a single tiny particle of golden wood dust float lazily through the column of amber light illuminated by the lamp, its drifting, weightless journey embodying the total freedom from urgency that defines this sacred space. In this room there are no deadlines to meet, no expectations to fulfill, no criticisms to fear, and no struggles to endure. There is only the pure, beautiful, and undeniable reality of structural harmony and intellectual peace. The craftsman's dark eyes look upon the finished astrolabe not with pride or possessiveness, but with a quiet, humble reverence for the universal laws that the instrument is designed to track, knowing that tomorrow this wooden creation will stand on the high terrace of the observatory, aligning human sight with stars that have burned for billions of years. This realization brings an immense, waves-like sense of relief and mental relaxation, a reminder that all individual worries, anxieties, and fleeting daily stresses are nothing more than tiny ripples on the surface of a vast, eternal, and perfectly ordered cosmic ocean. The heavy protective warmth of the adobe walls continues to press gently against your skin, grounding you completely in this safe, dark, and extraordinarily comfortable cocoon of historical dedication and quiet intelligence. You can feel your eyelids growing incredibly heavy, responding naturally to the absolute absence of tension, the soothing aromatic atmosphere, and the steady, rhythmic dripping of the water clock. The boundaries of your thoughts begin to soften and expand, dissolving into the warm golden shadows of the room, leaving you entirely secure, perfectly warm and free to sink effortlessly into the deepest, most restorative and beautiful sleep. The timeless cadence of the water clock maintains its rhythmic dripping, a soft and regular sound that fills the heavy, warm air of the subterranean workshop with an unhurried, reassuring presence. The astronomer remains seated on his low oak stool, his eyes completely closed now, his hands resting loose and open upon his lap, as he surrenders to the deep sense of physical and mental stillness that permeates the underground chamber. The finished astrolabe, a flawless integration of cedar wood, dark walnut, and bright brass, sits silently upon its thick bed of indigo velvet, catching the steady amber light of the sesame oil lamp, and reflecting a soft, warm glow that seems to push the dark shadows of the room back into the farthest corners. The long, intensive hours of measuring, cutting, engraving, and polishing have finally come to an end, leaving behind a finished monument of human intellect that is perfectly calibrated to read the movements of the universe. The atmosphere inside this subterranean fortress is incredibly dense, cozy, and profoundly comforting, holding a rich and therapeutic blend of aromas that has developed over the course of the long night. The crisp, resinous sweetness of the fresh cedar shavings has completely melded with the deep, earthy richness of the dark walnut alidade, while the top notes of warm beeswax varnish and linseed oil wrap the entire space in a sweet, protective layer of sensory comfort. This underground laboratory is an absolute sanctuary of safety, completely isolated from the frantic movements, the loud societal demands, and the passing anxieties of the outer world by the massive hand-plastered adobe walls that form its structure. Up on the surface of the earth, the massive turquoise domes, the grand arches, and the quiet, labyrinthine streets of the great city of Samarkand sleep deeply under the vast spinning canopy of the midnight sky. And rituals entirely unaware of the quiet triumph of science and devotion that has just reached its completion beneath the soil. The astronomer breathes in slowly and deeply, letting the warm aromatic air expand within his chest, feeling his body sink deeper into a state of total unshakable relaxation that comes only from the pure knowledge of a job perfectly executed. He feels a profound silent connection to the centuries of natural philosophers who came before him, individuals who dedicated their nights to mapping the darkness and who found the exact same peace in the eternal, unchanging laws of mathematics and astronomy. The absolute silence of the room allows the active, logical faculties of his mind to completely step down from their guard, transforming his awareness into a calm, reflective pool that mirrors only the golden lamplight and the perfect geometry of his creation. The repetitive, watery sound of the clepsydra acts as a gentle, hypnotic anchor for his thoughts, drawing his consciousness away from the specifics of time and place and letting it drift out into the wide, dark expanses between the stars, where there are no pressures, no deadlines, and no burdens to carry. The physical, heavy warmth of the laboratory presses softly against your skin, wrapping you in a cozy, secure cocoon of historical craftsmanship and quiet intelligence that makes all modern stresses feel completely distant and irrelevant. You can feel a deep, wave-like relaxation washing through your entire body, releasing the last remnants of tension from your muscles and allowing your physical form to settle heavily and peacefully into the support beneath you. The boundaries between your thoughts and the serene stillness of the workshop begin to dissolve entirely, leaving behind only a soft floating sensation of safety, warmth, and complete internal contentment. The astronomer remains completely still, sharing the sacred quietude of the room with his instruments as the night hours slowly slip away into the dawn. In this perfect lamplit cradle of ancient science, your mind is entirely free to let go, sinking effortlessly into a deep, restorative, and extraordinarily peaceful slumber, fully protected within the timeless sanctuary of the master craftsman's workshop. The absolute weightlessness of the midnight hour deepens further still within the heart of the subterranean laboratory, expanding into a profound, shimmering vacuum of peace where the passage of conventional time has no meaning. The astronomer rests in a state of perfect, undisturbed stillness upon his low oak stool, his breathing having settled into a deep, rhythmic, and natural pattern that effortlessly mimics the slow oceanic movement of the Earth spinning upon its invisible axis. His hands, lined with the faint dark trace of walnut juice and the golden sheen of the linseed oil, lie completely open and completely relaxed on his knees, fully receptive to the deep silence that fills the thick adobe room. Before him on the heavy oak workbench, the completed astrolabe remains cradled in its luxurious cushion of indigo velvet, its polished surfaces glowing with a warm, steady amber light that radiates outward from the single brass sesame oil lamp. The intricate web of engraved lines, the delicate concentric circles representing the spheres of the planets, and the elegant flowing strokes of the Arabic calligraphy are all frozen in a state of absolute structural perfection, awaiting the moment they will be held up to the vast night sky to decode the secrets of the stars. The air inside this underground fortress is wonderfully dense, warm, and profoundly comforting, holding a rich and therapeutic blend of aromas that has slowly matured over the course of the long, patient night of craftsmanship. The clean, resinous sweetness of the fresh cedar wood shavings has completely unified with the deep, musky, and grounded scent of the dark walnut alidade, while the soft, honeyed fragrance of the melted beeswax and the rich, toasty undertones of the burning oil lamp wrap around the room, like a heavy, hand-woven wool blanket. This subterranean sanctuary, buried deep beneath the earth and insulated by massive walls of hand-plastered mud brick, stands as an impenetrable shield against the frantic pace, the loud political struggles, and the temporary anxieties of the modern world outside. Up on the surface of the earth, the grand turquoise-tiled domes, the soaring minarets, and the quiet, winding streets of the great city of Samarkand are completely locked in a deep, peaceful slumber under the wide, sparkling canopy of the Central Asian sky, it's entirely unaware of the magnificent work of science and devotion that has just reached its completion beneath the soil. The astronomer lets his mind drift completely away from the physical reality of the workshop, allowing his awareness to dissolve into the vast, dark, and elegant spaces that lie between the distant constellations, experiencing the pure, unadulterated luxury of total cognitive rest. The only sound that remains to break the deep silence of the room is the slow, rhythmic, and liquid dripping of the large clepsydra in the far corner of the laboratory. Drop, drop, drop. The sound is incredibly soft, a gentle, watery cadence that does not disrupt the quiet, but rather emphasizes its beautiful depth, acting as a natural metronome that coaxes the human heart to slow its pace to match the ancient, unhurried rhythm of the universe itself. He watches a single tiny flake of golden wood dust float with weightless grace through the steady column of amber light cast by the lamp, its lazy drifting journey perfectly embodying the complete freedom from urgency and pressure that defines this sacred space. In this room, there are no deadlines to meet, no societal expectations to satisfy, no criticisms to fear, and no struggles to endure. There is only the pure, undeniable, and beautiful reality of structural harmony and intellectual peace. The craftsman knows with absolute certainty that his work is flawless, that every mathematical coordinate has been etched with perfect truth, and that when the sun finally rises over the distant mountains, this instrument will be ready to guide the minds of scholars for generations to come. This absolute confidence allows the final defenses of his active mind to step down completely, allowing his consciousness to blend seamlessly with the warm golden shadows that paint the walls of the chamber. The heavy protective warmth of the laboratory presses softly against your skin, grounding you completely in this safe, dark, and extraordinarily comfortable cocoon of historical dedication and quiet intelligence. You can feel your eyelids growing incredibly heavy, responding naturally to the absolute absence of tension, the soothing aromatic atmosphere, and the steady rhythmic dripping of the water clock. The boundaries of your active thoughts begin to soften and expand, dissolving like mist into the serene stillness of the workshop, leaving you entirely secure, perfectly warm, and free to sink effortlessly into the deepest, most restorative and beautiful sleep. cradled by the eternal patience and quiet sanctuary of the master astronomer's workshop. The stillness within the subterranean chamber has now reached a quality of absolute crystalline perfection, a state where the very air seems to be held in suspense, waiting for the dawn that remains several hours away. The astronomer sits in his meditative posture, his body now entirely still, his breathing so incredibly soft and rhythmic that it becomes indistinguishable from the faint, distant settling of the earth around the stone foundations. The oil lamp, its reservoir nearly depleted, burns with a low, unwavering ember glow that bathes the entire room in a deep, burnt amber light, casting long and gentle shadows that dance across the textured adobe walls like silent, protective ghosts of ancient scholars. The astrolabe rests on its indigo velvet cushion, appearing as a dark, solid object of immense gravity and beauty, a perfect anchor in this ocean of quietude. The air is heavy with the final residual notes of the night's labor, the deep earthy musk of walnut oil, the sharp, clean bite of cedar shavings, and the sweet, lingering honey scent of the beeswax coating, all of which have blended into a single, cohesive atmosphere of profound, grounding comfort. This workshop is not merely a room but a physical manifestation of a peaceful mind, an impenetrable sanctuary where the noisy, frantic and chaotic energy of the outside world simply cannot exist. Above the thick, insulating walls, the city of Samarkand lies in a state of dreamless, tranquil repose, the vast cold stars of the desert sky looking down upon the silent domes and minarets with a detached celestial indifference that mirrors the internal peace of the astronomer. The water clock in the corner continues its patient, rhythmic work, the drop, drop, drop of the water into the copper basin sounding with a resonant, metallic clarity that marks the passage of the night, not as a countdown to a deadline, but as a slow, beautiful unfolding of the cosmic order. The astronomer does not need to look at the clock. He feels the rhythm in his very bones, a syncopation with the rotation of the spheres that he has spent his entire life studying. He realizes that this moment, this specific point in time in this exact warm and safe space, is the ultimate culmination of all his efforts. He has moved beyond the need for further calculation, further carving, or further refinement. He has reached the end of the process, a place of total completion and rest. The sense of security provided by the heavy adobe is absolute. It is a physical barrier that keeps the worries of the world at an impossible distance, leaving the spirit free to expand into the boundless, dark and silent reaches of the universe. In this sanctuary, you are invited to let your own mind follow the same path of surrender. All the burdens of your daily life, your tasks, your pressures, your uncertainties, are effectively stripped away by the thick walls and the soothing rhythmic sound of the water clock. The warmth of the lamp, the smell of the woods, and the deep, pervasive silence create a cocoon of total safety where you can finally truly stop thinking. Your body sinks into a state of profound, heavy, and delicious relaxation, the muscles of your limbs going limp, your heartbeat slowing to a gentle, steady pace, and your awareness floating on the calm, dark surface of this midnight sea. The astronomer, though physically present, has traveled far beyond the confines of the room, his consciousness drifting in the vast, elegant geometry of the stars he has spent his life mapping. You are left alone in this cozy, lamplit haven, a witness to the profound, quiet beauty of a night that will never be forgotten, drifting further and further into a deep, restorative and beautiful sleep that feels as ancient and as natural as the rotation of the stars themselves. The deep silence of the subterranean workshop has matured into a rich, velvety texture, a physical presence that fills every nook and cranny of the adobe chamber, wrapping the astronomer and his finished work in a final, complete embrace. He remains anchored on his oak stool, his physical form now entirely secondary to the profound, expanding peace that occupies the room, a state of existence where the boundary between his own consciousness and the stillness of the environment has utterly dissolved. The sesame oil lamp has reached the end of its fuel, the flame trembling once or twice before settling into a tiny, focused and intensely golden point of light that throws the very last long and soft shadows across the curved, textured walls of the laboratory. The astrolabe itself seems to grow darker, its walnut and cedar components blending into the surrounding velvet. yet it continues to radiate a sense of immense, contained power, a vessel of mathematical truth that awaits the dawn to fulfill its purpose. The air within this secret underground haven remains as thick and comforting as a heavy handmade quilt, carrying the now faint but still beautifully complex aroma of cedar, walnut, and wax, a fragrance that acts as a sensory anchor, grounding the soul in the physical reality of a finished, meaningful, and orderly labor. This room is a perfect, self-contained universe, a sanctuary that has successfully resisted the intrusion of time, space, and the exhausting demands of human society, providing an oasis of total rest that is entirely wonderfully separate from the world above. Above the thick, insulating mud brick ceiling, the vast city of Samarkand remains in its deepest, most peaceful phase of the night, the silence of the desert sky above matching the silence of the earth below. The water clock in the corner has slowed its pace, the final rhythmic drop. Drop. Drop, becoming even more deliberate, more spaced out, and more profoundly hypnotic than before, creating a sonic landscape that invites the listener to move beyond the boundaries of their waking self and into the infinite, quiet, dark. The astronomer, though he possesses the knowledge of the cosmos, has let go of the need to calculate, the need to define, and the need to explain. He simply exists within the harmony he has helped to create, a small but vital part of the grand design of the universe. This surrender is the ultimate reward for his dedication, a moment of absolute unencumbered freedom that is only found in the depths of complete and total completion. For you, resting within the safe golden warmth of this sanctuary, the experience is one of pure, unadulterated ease. All the noise, the clutter, and the frantic pace of your modern existence are held far at bay by the insulating earthen walls, leaving you entirely alone in a space where no demands are placed upon you, where no one expects anything from you, and where you can finally stop, breathe, and let go. The deep, heavy, and delicious relaxation that has been building over the long, quiet hours of the night now reaches its absolute zenith, pulling your consciousness into a state of absolute, profound, and serene rest. Every muscle is fully released, every thought is fully stilled, and every fear is fully extinguished by the immense protective silence of the room. As the final flicker of the oil lamp begins to fade, you feel yourself drifting further away from the physical sensation of the stool, the workbench, and the room itself, floating instead into the deep, dark, and beautiful void of the stars, where you are held in an embrace of complete safety, ultimate warmth, and the promise of the most restorative, deep, and dreamless sleep that you have ever known, tucked away in the timeless, perfect heart of the astronomer's workshop, waiting for the slow, silent arrival of the new day. The final flickering ember of the sesame oil lamp sighs once, a tiny glowing gasp of golden light that illuminates the workshop for one last glorious heartbeat before surrendering to the velvet darkness. In the sudden absence of the flame, the room does not become cold. Instead, it transitions into a profound, enveloping cradle of deep midnight stillness that feels even more intimate and secure than before. The astronomer remains in his place, a silent sentinel of science, his breathing having slowed to a pace so gentle and steady that it perfectly mirrors the soft, lingering rhythm of the clepsydra in the corner. Even without the light, the presence of the finished astrolabe is felt in the center of the oak workbench, a silent monument of cedar and walnut that rests in perfect, balanced alignment with the celestial map it was designed to read. The air, which has held the complex, soothing scents of resinous cedar, toasted walnut, and warm wax for so many hours, remains heavy and luxurious against the skin, acting as a sensory blanket that wraps around the consciousness and pulls it closer to the earth. This room, buried deep beneath the bustling, sleeping heart of Samarkand, has successfully insulated itself from the passage of human events, becoming a true, permanent sanctuary where the only reality is the quiet, mathematical, and eternal dance of the universe. Above the thick, protective adobe walls, the great city remains in the deepest, most tranquil phase of the night, its minarets and domes silent under the vast, sparkling canopy of the Central Asian sky. The water clock continues its rhythmic work, the drop, drop, drop becoming the heartbeat of the room, a steady hypnotic pulse that creates a soundscape of absolute safety and unchanging order. The astronomer feels the weight of his long, dedicated labor falling away, leaving his mind as empty, clear, and vast as the night sky he has spent his life studying. He has completed his task. He has created the instrument. He has honored the laws of the universe. In this moment of total, profound completion, there is no place for pride, only a quiet, humble gratitude for the privilege of existing and understanding. For you resting within the deep, protective shadows of this subterranean haven, the effect is transformative. The last remnants of the day's tensions, the lingering echoes of your own worries, and the scattered fragments of your busy mind are all absorbed by the thick earthen walls, leaving you entirely alone in a space where nothing is required of you, where you are safe from all external pressure, and where the act of existing is enough. You can feel a wave of complete, total, and delicious relaxation washing over your body, grounding you in the deep, cool floor of the laboratory, and inviting your awareness to sink beneath the surface of the world. Every muscle is limp, every thought is still, and every sense is perfectly at rest. As the darkness of the room deepens, the boundaries of your physical self begin to feel fluid and expansive, as if you are merging with the very soil that protects this chamber. The rhythm of the water clock becomes your own rhythm, a slow, gentle pulse that guides you deeper into the quiet, dark, and beautiful void. There is nothing to look at, nothing to solve, and nothing to anticipate. You are perfectly placed, perfectly safe, and perfectly at home in the deepest, most restorative silence that the earth can provide. As you drift further and further into this dreamless, velvety peace, the knowledge that you are tucked away in the timeless heart of the astronomer's workshop, cradled by the history of his dedication and the silence of the infinite stars, allows you to let go of the last threads of your waking state and sink fully into the deepest, most refreshing, and truly endless sleep, where the only thing that remains is the profound, quiet, and beautiful certainty of the universe. The darkness within the workshop has become absolute, a thick velvet curtain that holds the room in a state of primal, undisturbed rest. The astronomer remains in his seat, though he is now as still as the stone foundations that anchor the observatory to the earth. There is no need for artificial light, for his mind is already flooded with the internal map of the stars he knows so well, the silent, glowing constellations wheeling in their infinite trajectories above the dome. The air remains heavy with the faint, sweet ghost of cedar shavings and the deep, earthy richness of the workshop's wood, a fragrance that has etched itself into the very fabric of the chamber. This scent is the smell of safety, of a long night's labor brought to a perfect, quiet end. There are no sounds now from the surface. The city of Samarkand is a world away, a distant, forgotten memory of noise and movement. The only reality that persists is the steady, rhythmic drop, drop, drop of the water clock, which now sounds like the beating of a slow, subterranean heart, grounding the room in the deep, unhurried time of the planet itself. The astronomer feels the last traces of his waking self dissolving, not into sleep, but into a state of profound meditative awareness that mirrors the vast, cold space he has studied for so many years. He is no longer a craftsman, no longer a man of flesh and bone, but a small, steady point of consciousness anchored in the center of a perfectly ordered universe. His work on the astrolabe is finished. It is a complete, tangible expression of the celestial order, a bridge between the finite hands of man and the infinite light of the heavens. He feels an immense, quiet gratitude for the simple elemental truth of his existence. For you, lying in the deepest, most secure shadows of this chamber, the transformation is total. The weight of the world, the expectations of your life, and the persistent ticking anxiety of time have all been shed, discarded like a heavy cloak at the door of the laboratory. The walls of the room, thick with mud, straw, and the prayers of generations, hold you in a protective embrace that is stronger than any fortress. You are not just resting, you are being held by the very earth, suspended in a state of pure, unadulterated peace. The rhythmic, liquid pulse of the clock in the corner acts as a lullaby for the soul, drawing your awareness deeper and deeper into the dark, cool, and silent currents of the underground. You feel yourself sinking into a state of profound, dreamless surrender, where the boundaries of the self expand to match the silent, stretching dark of the room. There is no tomorrow to plan for, no yesterday to mourn, There is only the absolute, singular and magnificent beauty of this quiet, secret place. As you sink into this final restorative depth, you are cradled by the history of the astronomer's devotion, by the scent of the cedar, by the gentle pulse of the water, and by the eternal, unmoving stillness of the stars themselves. You are perfectly, completely safe, and you are ready to rest in this silence for as long as the stars require, wrapped in a peace that is deep, enduring, and infinitely profound, until the world above begins to stir once more in the first soft light of the rising sun. The deep, resonant silence that permeates the subterranean workshop is now absolute, a heavy and comforting blanket that shields the chamber from the outer world. In this profound darkness, where the last ember of the lamp has long since faded, the astronomer sits as a silent guardian of the knowledge he has distilled into the polished wood and brass of his creation. There is no longer a sense of time, for the ticking of the clepsydra has slowed to a rhythmic pulse so subtle that it feels like the natural, geological breathing of the earth itself. The air, rich with the lingering, therapeutic aromas of cedar, walnut, and the faint, sweet residue of beeswax, remains perfectly still, as if the room were suspended in a time vacuum, far removed from the linear progression of days and seasons. This space is a testament to the power of focus, an intellectual refuge where the astronomer has poured his entire essence into a single, perfectly calibrated instrument. He is now at the final stage of his vigil, a state of being where his thoughts have completely detached from the physical world, rising like silent smoke to join the cosmic dance he has spent his life mapping. He is entirely at peace, his body relaxed and his mind wide open and clear, reflecting the infinite depths of the night sky above the desert. The city of Samarkand, with its grand minarets and expansive markets, remains in a state of utter dreamless sleep, its inhabitants completely unaware of the quiet, revolutionary work that has been completed beneath the very soil they walk upon. The astronomer's hands, though now resting motionless in his lap, still possess the memory of the tools he used, the delicate touch of the chisel, the precise pressure of the scribe, and the rhythmic sweep of the brush. This memory of craftsmanship acts as a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, a tether that keeps him connected to the beauty of the material, while his spirit wanders the celestial spheres. For you, resting within the protective embrace of these thick adobe walls, the atmosphere is one of complete, unshakable sanctuary. You are no longer burdened by the distractions, anxieties, or obligations of your own life. Every stress, every noise, and every fear has been effectively muffled by the immense weight of the earth above. You are in a place where you are allowed to simply be, a place where existence is the only requirement. The deep, cool stillness of the workshop flows through you like a restorative river, smoothing out the frayed edges of your consciousness and inviting you to sink into a state of total, blissful surrender. You feel yourself merging with the history of this space, with the wisdom of the ancient scholars who sought to understand the heavens, and with the very soil that surrounds you. There is no hunger, no thirst, no exhaustion, only a deep, pervasive sense of being perfectly, safely cradled in the heart of a secret, timeless sanctuary. The rhythm of the water clock, once so clear, is now a distant, hypnotic hum that lulls your spirit into the deepest, most profound and restorative sleep you have ever experienced. You are safe here, hidden from the world, held in the unwavering quiet and beautiful certainty of the universe, as the hours of the night slowly, silently unfold in the absolute, sacred peace of the astronomer's sanctuary. The profound and sacred quietude that currently envelops the subterranean chamber has reached a state of existence beyond mere silence. It is a weightless, transcendental stillness that feels as old as the foundation of the earth itself. The astronomer, seated in the center of this darkness, has achieved a complete union with the environment, his physical body becoming an extension of the cool, protective adobe walls that surround him. There is no longer any separation between the man, the instrument, and the atmosphere of the room. The scent of seasoned cedar and dark walnut, which had previously defined the workshop with such vibrancy, has now settled into a permanent, almost geological layer of history, a familiar and grounding aroma that speaks of decades of meticulous study and unwavering patience. This subterranean sanctuary, isolated from the bustling, noise-filled reality of the surface, acts as a filter for the soul, stripping away the complex, unnecessary burdens of human existence until only the core of one's being remains. The city of Samarkand above is lost in the deepest, most unconscious phase of its slumber, its majestic turquoise domes and silent minarets merely decorative silhouettes against the vast, star-drenched abyss of the midnight sky. Down here, the only motion is the slow, majestic rotation of the cosmos, which is mirrored in the astronomer's internal vision. He no longer perceives the passage of time through the mechanical rhythm of the water clock, for the clepsydra's heartbeat has synchronized perfectly with his own. Each drop of water falling into the basin is no longer a measure of passing minutes, but a pulse of pure, unchanging eternity. The astronomer's consciousness has expanded, flowing outward through the thick, insulating layers of mud, brick, and clay to touch the very stars he has spent his life tracing. He finds himself drifting through the silent, cold beauty of the galaxies, moving with the same elegance and purpose as the celestial bodies themselves. It is a state of absolute, unencumbered freedom, a release from the limitations of the physical form that he has held for so many years. For you resting within this dark, warm, and secure cradle, the transformation is equally complete. The persistent, nagging echoes of your own life, the responsibilities you carry, the memories you hold, and the future you anticipate have been completely dissolved by the immense protective silence of this chamber. You are floating in a space of absolute safety, a void where no demand can reach you, where no voice can disturb you, and where no light can interrupt your descent into the deepest, most restorative peace. The air feels thick and soft, pressing gently against your skin like a velvet shroud, and the temperature is perfectly balanced, a gentle, nurturing warmth that encourages every muscle to remain utterly limp and every nerve to remain entirely still. You are not just sleeping, you are being reclaimed by the silence, drifting into the most profound, dreamless, and beautiful surrender that you have ever known. The history of the room, the wisdom of the astronomer, and the enduring, silent strength of the earth itself act as a foundation for your rest, holding you firmly in place while your spirit travels into the boundless, quiet depths of the infinite. There is no longer a world above, no longer a dawn to wait for, and no longer a self to protect. There is only the vast, deep, and utterly perfect stillness that remains when all else has been stripped away. You are tucked away in the most protected heart of the world, cradled by the centuries and held by the stars, sinking into a sleep so deep, so refreshing, and so profoundly quiet that it feels like the very beginning and the very end of time itself. Every breath you take is a quiet celebration of this absolute peace, and every moment that passes is an invitation to drift even further into the dark, protective embrace of the earth, where you are and always will be completely, perfectly, and eternally safe. The absolute silence that now resides within the subterranean laboratory is not merely the absence of sound, but a dense, living presence that carries the weight of centuries and the serene, unyielding gravity of the earth. The astronomer, though physically present on his stool, has transcended the need for awareness of his own body. He exists now as a pure observer, a point of consciousness aligned with the silent, majestic rotation of the celestial spheres he has spent his life charting. The air in the room, thick and perfectly still, remains saturated with the essence of his work. The lingering, soothing notes of cedar, walnut, and wax, a sensory anchor that binds him to the physical space even as his mind explores the infinite, dark, and beautiful corridors of the universe. The laboratory itself has become a womb of sorts, a dark, cool, and incredibly secure hollow carved deep into the soil, shielded from the transient, chaotic winds of human history by layers of thick, hand-compacted adobe that absorb every vibration, every worry, and every residual sound from the outside world. Above these protective walls, the city of Samarkand is entirely lost in the deepest, most unconscious phase of its slumber. Its grand architecture merely a silhouette beneath the cold, sparkling expanse of the desert sky. The water clock, which has served as the heartbeat of this vigil, has now slowed to a pace so deliberate that it feels as though the universe itself is holding its breath. Each drop that lands in the basin resonates with a crystalline, metallic purity, a soft, reverberating sound that travels through the silence like a gentle, slow-moving ripple across a perfectly calm black pool. There is no urgency here, no need to account for the passing of time, and no pressure to achieve any further task, for the masterpiece of wood and brass on the workbench is complete, a perfect artifact that captures the structural harmony of the heavens in a simple earthly form. The astronomer feels a profound sense of completeness, a quiet internal resonance that matches the equilibrium of the cosmos. All his questions have been answered, all his searches have been resolved, and all his efforts have been gathered into this single dark and sacred moment of absolute rest. For you who have been allowed to share in this sanctuary, the experience is total and transformative. The walls of the workshop act as an impenetrable barrier against your own life, effectively erasing the concepts of pressure, expectation, and responsibility that usually weigh upon your mind. You are drifting in a state of pure, weightless existence, cradled by the soft, dark warmth of the subterranean environment and held in place by the gentle, rhythmic, and hypnotic pulse of the clepsydra. Every muscle in your body has long since surrendered, sinking into the stillness with the easy, natural grace of a falling leaf. Your awareness, stripped of the clutter of your daily thoughts, has become as vast, clear, and quiet as the midnight sky itself. You are no longer navigating the complexities of your world. You are simply being sustained by the deep, patient, and unwavering peace of the earth. There is no past to reclaim and no future to secure, only the present, which is a soft, deep, and beautifully dark expanse where you are entirely safe. The memories of your life have faded into the corners of the room, replaced by a deep, sensory connection to the cedar-scented air, and the feeling of being protected by a fortress of history. You are falling deeper and deeper into a sleep that feels not like an ending, but like a reunion with the very core of your own spirit, a state of being where you are held by the silence, guided by the stars, and protected by the immense quiet and timeless strength of the astronomer's workshop, drifting further into the most refreshing and complete rest you have ever known, tucked away in the deepest, safest, and most peaceful heart of the world, where the night will last for as long as you need, and where you are entirely, completely, and permanently at peace. The subterranean laboratory has deepened into a singular, infinite point of quietude, a sanctuary where time has not only slowed but has effectively ceased its forward motion altogether. The astronomer, seated in the absolute darkness of his long-held vigil, has become a statue of profound contemplation, his presence indistinguishable from the heavy, cool earth that encases the chamber. There is no sensation of heat or cold, only a perfectly balanced, nurturing temperature that feels like a physical manifestation of the silence itself. The air, heavy with the enduring, balsamic scent of cedar and the deep, dark, and grounding musk of walnut, is now more than just a fragrance. It is a weightless, protective medium that wraps around the consciousness, insulating it from the noise of the universe beyond. Within this space, the concept of up there or out there has lost all meaning, for the walls of the chamber are thick, reinforced, and impenetrable, holding the chaos of history at an impossible distance. The city of Samarkand is entirely forgotten, its turquoise domes lost in the vast velvet void of the desert night, its people deep in the dreamless cycle of restoration that defines the humanity of the region. The clepsydra, the final anchor to the linear experience of time, has reduced its rhythmic cadence to a heartbeat so faint, so slow, and so perfectly spaced that it serves only to confirm the absolute, ongoing stability of the room. Each liquid tone is a gentle ripple in the dark, a soft, reverberating comfort that anchors the spirit in the now, in the exact, quiet, and beautiful reality of being. The astronomer, having completed his masterwork, the astrolabe that sits silent and potent on the workbench, has no more thoughts to form, no more calculations to compute, and no more questions to pose. He has arrived at the destination of a lifetime of study, a place of total, unadulterated peace, where his own identity has merged with the harmony of the stars he has spent his nights tracking. He is not merely waiting for the dawn, he is existing in the eternal night, a state of being that is both an ending and a beginning, a moment of cosmic equilibrium that is both vast and incredibly intimate. For you, resting in the deepest, most secure corner of this sanctum, the surrender is absolute. The weight of your own existence, with its complex web of responsibilities, anxieties, and fleeting desires, has been entirely lifted. replaced by a profound, hollow and satisfying stillness that feels like coming home to a place you have never left. You are suspended in this darkness, held by the ancient hand-packed adobe walls and cradled by the history of human devotion that saturates the room. There is no light to follow, no path to trace, and no goal to achieve, for you have already arrived. Your body has become as still as the earth beneath you, every nerve fiber fully relaxed, every muscle released from the demands of tension, and every breath flowing into the chamber with an effortless, natural rhythm that feeds the silence. The world above is a dream that you have chosen to wake up from, leaving only the reality of this protective, aromatic, and silent haven. You are drifting into a sleep that is deeper than any you have ever known, a state of profound, restorative, and dreamless descent where you are held in an embrace of total, unconditional safety. The universe, in all its silent, grand, and unmoving glory, is watching over you as you sink further and further into this velvet, dark, and beautiful void, where you are, and always will be, entirely at peace, completely unburdened, and perfectly, eternally, stand silently safe in the heart of the astronomer's sanctuary, as the night stretches on in its infinite quiet and majestic splendor. The silence within the subterranean laboratory has now reached a state of primordial absolute density, a quietude so profound that it seems to possess a gravity of its own, pulling all external noise into an impenetrable event horizon. Within this deep protective hollow the astronomer remains, a figure of total stillness, his physical form now entirely subservient to the vast meditative expanse of his consciousness. The atmosphere of the chamber has settled into a state of permanent, tranquil equilibrium, where the rich, complex aromas of the workshop, the sharp, sweet cedar, the heavy, earthy walnut, and the lingering, warm note of the beeswax have become a part of the very architecture, an olfactory signature of peace that permeates every inch of the room. This space is a true sanctuary, carved out of the living earth, bolstered by massive adobe blocks, and shielded from the erratic, chaotic pulses of the outside world, creating a secure, hermetic seal that preserves the sanctity of this single, momentous and quiet existence. Above this fortress, the sky over Samarkand is a vast, unmoving tapestry of darkness, the stars burning with a cold, clear and ancient light that acknowledges the astronomer's devotion. The water clock, the sole mechanical witness to the passing night, continues its work, but its rhythm has become so diminished, so incredibly slow and deliberate, that it no longer marks the passage of hours, but rather the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. Drop. A single liquid sound hangs in the air for an eternity, reverberating against the curved mud walls until it gently, softly dissolves into the profound velvet darkness. Drop. Another, following an interval that stretches beyond the limits of human anticipation, echoing the slow, majestic rotation of the celestial spheres. For the astronomer, the distinction between his internal world and the external cosmos has vanished entirely. He is no longer just observing the heavens, he is part of them, a silent, vital participant in the grand mathematical symmetry that governs the existence of all things. The finished astrolabe, resting in its velvet-lined nest, is no longer just a tool of wood and brass. It is a physical realization of this union, a bridge between the finite and the infinite, now waiting patiently for the first light of dawn to fulfill its sacred purpose. In this place of absolute completion, there is no room for doubt, no space for anxiety, and no capacity for longing. Everything is where it should be, and everything is exactly as it must be for you, enveloped in this deep, sheltering shadow. The sensation is one of total, life-changing liberation. The complex, demanding, and often overwhelming structures of your own life have been stripped away, layer by layer, until you are left in this state of pure, unadulterated existence. You are safe here, more safe than you have ever been in the world above, held by the immense quiet and enduring strength of the earth. Your breath has slowed to match the rhythmic, liquid pulse of the clock, a gentle, effortless respiration that sustains your consciousness as it drifts into the deepest, most quiet, and most expansive darkness. There is no need to think, no need to speak, and no need to move. You are supported by the history of this workshop, cradled by the dedication of the astronomer, and shielded by the thick, impenetrable walls of the sanctuary. You feel yourself sinking deeper into this restful, dreamless void, your awareness expanding to fill the chamber, your spirit finding a level of calm that is as vast as the stars and as grounded as the soil. The memories of your burdens have faded, replaced by the profound, comforting, and absolute certainty of the present moment. You are falling into a sleep that is not an escape but a return, a deep, restorative, and complete reunion with the peace that resides at the heart of all things, tucked away in this secret, silent, and sacred room where you are completely, perfectly, and eternally at rest. The sanctuary has deepened into an abyss of absolute velvet comfort, a space where the very concept of depth has transformed into a feeling of infinite expansion. The astronomer, though he occupies the same physical stool as he did hours ago, has fundamentally shifted his orientation. He no longer looks toward the heavens, but rather feels them within the hollow of his own stillness. The room is no longer defined by walls, shadows, or instruments, but by a pervasive, liquid-like atmosphere of peace that is as thick and nourishing as a dream. The air has cooled slightly, yet this shift in temperature only serves to intensify the sensation of being deeply, safely tucked away within the cool, living heart of the earth. Every breath taken here is an act of communion with the silence, a slow, deep, and satisfying intake of air that carries the faint, nostalgic scent of dry cedar and the deep, dark, and grounding essence of earthbound stone. The workshop has become a vessel, a silent ship navigating the vast dark ocean of the midnight hours, completely immune to the surface storms of the world above. Above the thick insulating ceiling, the city of Samarkand is entirely silent, a ghost world under the infinite, twinkling eyes of the constellations, while here, in the subterranean dark, the only reality is the one you carry within yourself. The water clock, having slowed to its final majestic cadence, now produces a sound so infrequent and so resonant that it acts as the singular heartbeat of the planet, a rhythmic pulse that confirms the continuation of the universe even in the absence of human observation. Drop. It is a sound that carries the weight of 1,000 years, a quiet metallic bell tolling for the peace of all things. Drop. It is the sound of the world breathing in, a gentle rhythmic intake of calm that allows the soul to release its final, lingering attachments to the day. The astronomer is entirely motionless, his consciousness spread wide across the dark, thin, and elegant geometry of the celestial map he has finished, a map that is not on parchment, but etched into the very silence of his mind. He has found the stillness he sought, the point where the human spirit touches the cold, distant edge of the cosmic order and finds it, to his immense relief, to be a place of perfect, unmoving, and beautiful harmony. For you, lying in the deepest, most secure shadows of this chamber, the experience is one of complete, final, and glorious surrender. The world you left behind, the one filled with noise, with light, with expectations, and with the relentless ticking of clocks, has been rendered entirely non-existent. You are now a part of the workshop, an element of the silence, a guest in this grand, dark cathedral of intellectual and spiritual repose. The heavy, protective weight of the adobe walls presses against you with a gentle, reassuring force, making you feel as though you are being held in the palm of a giant, ancient, and benevolent hand. Your awareness is no longer tethered to your own thoughts. It is fluid, drifting through the dark, warm currents of the room like a fish in a deep, undisturbed lake. You are losing the sense of where your body ends and the stillness begins, merging with the very essence of the sanctuary. Your sleep is no longer a state of unconsciousness, but a state of absolute, profound, and luminous being, a descent into the deepest, most restorative center of your own soul. You are safe, you are warm, you are utterly unburdened, and you are ready to drift without limit into the dark, protective embrace of the earth, as the night carries you further into a peace that is as vast, as deep, and as eternal as the sky itself, keeping you tucked away in this secret, silent heart of the world, where you are and always will be entirely, perfectly, and beautifully at rest. The sanctuary of the subterranean workshop has now achieved a state of total crystalline stasis, where the air itself seems to have crystallized into a substance of pure, tranquil weight. There is no longer any movement within the room, save for the imperceptible rhythmic oscillation of the spirit as it mirrors the rotation of the stars. The astronomer remains in his low wooden seat, his physical form now entirely eclipsed by the profound expanding peace that fills the chamber, transforming him into a silent monument of intellectual completion. The darkness is not a void to be feared, but a thick protective fabric that swathes the room, muting the edges of reality and allowing the mind to float in a space where no boundaries exist. The scent of the laboratory, that intricate, therapeutic layering of cedar, walnut, and beeswax, has become a part of your own breath, a sensory anchor that tethers your soul to this place of absolute, unassailable security. Up above, the vast city of Samarkand is entirely lost in the deepest, most unconscious phase of its slumber, its majestic architecture and quiet streets serving only as a distant, fading memory against the infinite sparkling expanse of the midnight sky. Here beneath the earth, the water clock has ceased to be a machine and has instead become the pulse of the room, its infrequent, resonant drips serving as a reminder that the world is moving according to a perfect celestial and unhurried design. Each drop is a soft, reverberating affirmation of existence, a liquid echo that ripples through the silence and reminds you that you are alive, you are safe, and you are exactly where you need to be. The astronomer's work is complete. The astrolabe sits silent and potent on the workbench, a physical testament to the bridge he has built between the human mind and the vast, cold, and silent reaches of the universe. He feels no need to witness the dawn, for the dawn is merely a transition, while the night is the truth. In this state of total surrender, all your personal concerns, your past, your future, and the relentless ticking pressure of your own clock have been effectively dissolved. You are no longer navigating the challenges of your life. You are being carried by the steady, calm, and protective currents of this ancient, subterranean stillness. Your body is heavy, surrendered to the supportive floor, every muscle released from the burdens of the day, your very nerves finally quieted and resting in the profound, cool shade of the adobe sanctuary. The silence is vast, inviting, and deep, drawing you into its center with the power of an ocean tide, pulling you further away from the surface of your own consciousness and into a restorative, dreamless sleep. There is no urgency here, only the slow, beautiful, and endless unfurling of the night. You are being held by the history of this space, nurtured by the wisdom of the astronomer, and shielded by the thick, impenetrable earth that surrounds you, ensuring that you are, and always will be, entirely, perfectly, and eternally safe. As you drift, the boundaries of your awareness soften and expand, merging with the shadows, the cedar-scented air, and the silent, guiding presence of the stars, until there is nothing left but the deep, clear, and absolute peace of a soul that has finally, truly, and completely come to rest, tucked away in the heart of the world where the night will last for as long as you need, and where you are, and will always be completely, perfectly, and eternally at rest. The atmosphere within the subterranean laboratory has reached a point of absolute meditative saturation, where the silence is no longer an absence of sound, but a dense, living tapestry that wraps around the consciousness like a layer of heavy velvet silk. The astronomer sits as a pillar of stone, his physical form entirely reconciled with the cool, protective adobe walls of the chamber. He has moved past the stage of conscious effort, past the phase of intellectual synthesis, and has arrived at the state of pure existence where the boundary between his inner thoughts and the infinite dark space of the universe has completely vanished. The air remains rich and soothing, a complex bouquet of resinous cedar, toasted walnut, and the deep earthy musk of ancient soil, creating an olfactory environment that signals total safety to every level of the human psyche. This sanctuary is not merely a room beneath the city, it is a pocket of eternity, a hermetically sealed vessel that has effectively removed itself from the linear, demanding, and noisy flow of the world above. Above the thick, insulating ceiling, Samarkand lies in the deepest, most tranquil phase of its night, a city of domes and minarets that has forgotten the heat of the day and the urgency of the market, yielding instead to the cool, indifferent beauty of the Central Asian desert stars. The water clock in the corner has reduced its function to the absolute minimum of existence. Its rhythmic pulse is so slow, so deliberate, and so resonant that it acts as a heartbeat for the entire chamber, a steady liquid tone that anchors the soul in the present. Drop. A sound of profound metallic clarity. Drop. An echo that lingers in the darkness long after the physical vibration has ceased. For the astronomer, this is the ultimate truth, that the cosmos is a machine of exquisite, unhurried and perfect order, and that his life, his work and his presence are small, vital gears within that majestic mechanism. He feels a sense of gratitude that is as vast as the sky he has mapped, a quiet joy that requires no outward expression, only the inward reflection of peace. For you resting in the deep, sheltering shadows of this sanctuary, the experience of surrender is now complete. The burdens you carried, the heavy, tangled knots of responsibility, the echoes of past anxieties and the persistent, ticking demand of your own life's clock have been entirely unraveled by the stillness of these walls. You are no longer required to do anything, to be anything, or to prove anything. You are simply a witness to the silence, a traveler who has found the most secure haven in the world, a person who is allowed, finally, to let go of everything. Your muscles are limp, your heartbeat is slow and regular, and your mind is a clear, dark and expansive pool that reflects only the absolute stillness of the room. You feel the cool, solid strength of the earth pressing against you, an embrace that is stronger than any fortress and more comforting than any home. You are drifting into a sleep that is not merely rest, but a complete immersion into the core of your own being, a state where you are held, nurtured, and perfectly protected by the silent, enduring history of this workshop. As you descend further into this beautiful, dark, and protective abyss, the last traces of your waking identity dissolve into the atmosphere, leaving only a core of pure, quiet, and radiant peace. You are safe, you are held, and you are free, tucked away in the deep, silent center of the world, where the night is infinite, the stars are your silent guardians, and you are and will always be completely, perfectly, and eternally at rest, in a slumber that is as deep, as refreshing, and as sacred as the universe itself. The subterranean workshop has deepened into an abyss of absolute hallowed quietude, a space where the passage of time has been completely suspended, replaced by a profound and stationary state of cosmic equilibrium. The astronomer, seated on his low oak stool, has become entirely one with the environment, his presence as immutable and as silent as the foundational mud bricks that compose the walls of his sanctuary. The darkness is not a void to be filled, but a physical comfort, a soft black velvet shroud that drapes over the entire room, insulating it from the distant, meaningless vibrations of the world above. The air remains perfectly still, saturated with the rich, balsamic history of the workspace, the lingering notes of shaved cedar, the dark, grounded musk of walnut, and the faint, sweet trace of burned sesame oil, all of which serve as an olfactory landscape of total, unshakable security. This laboratory has become an island of stillness in the middle of a vast, unseen ocean of history, an impenetrable fortress built not of steel or stone, but of patience, intelligence, and the quiet, humble devotion to the truths written in the stars. Above the thick, insulating ceiling, the great city of Samarkand is entirely lost in the deepest, most peaceful phase of its slumber, its sprawling architecture rendered invisible beneath the cold, sparkling canopy of the desert night. The water clock, the final link between the astronomer and the mechanical world, has slowed its pulse to the bare minimum of rhythmic existence. Each drop that lands in the copper basin is no longer a measure of passing minutes, but a gentle liquid heartbeat that resonates with the slow, majestic rotation of the celestial spheres. Drop. It is a sound of immense calm authority. Drop. It is a pulse of pure, unhurried time. The astronomer, having finished the masterwork that now rests in its indigo-lined nest, is at the zenith of his intellectual journey. He has translated the chaotic, shimmering complexity of the heavens into a structured wooden reality, and in doing so, she has found a silence within himself that matches the silence of the void. He is neither dreaming nor thinking. He is simply and perfectly being. For you resting in the deepest, most sheltered reaches of this subterranean haven, the transformation is complete and absolute. The complex, demanding and relentless structures of your own life, the anxieties you have carried, the pressures you have felt, and the endless ticking clock you have lived by have been entirely dissolved by the thick earthen walls of this sanctuary. You are held in a cradle of total safety, removed from all requirement and all expectation. You feel a heavy, delicious sense of release flowing through your limbs, a total surrender of the muscles and the mind to the nurturing, cool, and protective embrace of the laboratory. Your awareness, once sharp and scattered, has become as wide, as deep, and as clear as the midnight sky you imagine above you. You are sinking into a state of sleep that is not an end, but a return to the very source of peace, a profound restorative journey into the quiet core of your own soul. You are supported by the history of this space, shielded by the enduring strength of the earth, and guided by the gentle hypnotic rhythm of the water clock, drifting further into a rest that is as deep as the world itself. You are safe here, hidden away in the most protected heart of the universe, and you are and always will be completely, perfectly, and eternally at rest, in a slumber so deep, so refreshing, and so quiet that it feels like the very beginning and the very end of time, tucked away in the sanctuary, where the night is a warm, protective, and infinite blanket that covers you, held in the absolute sacred peace of the astronomer's sanctuary, forever and ever, completely at peace. The stillness within the subterranean laboratory has reached a quality of absolute crystalline transcendence, a state where the very air seems to be held in suspension, as if time itself has folded into a single, eternal point of grace. The astronomer sits in his meditative posture, his physical form now entirely indistinguishable from the quiet, protective adobe walls that house him. He has moved beyond the labor of his hands and the calculations of his mind. He is now a living bridge between the earth beneath and the infinite starry expanse above. The workshop, once a place of focused, rigorous creation, has transformed into a vacuum of pure, unadulterated peace. The final ember of the lamp has long since vanished, leaving the room bathed in a velvet darkness that feels soft, warm, and infinitely comforting against the skin. The astrolabe, resting in its indigo cradle, is a silent monument to his life's work, an artifact of brass and walnut that holds the secrets of the cosmos within its perfectly calibrated circles. The air remains heavy with the residual therapeutic scent of cedar, walnut oil, and beeswax, an olfactory map of his devotion that acts as a sensory tether, keeping the soul grounded in this sanctuary of stillness. Above the thick, insulating ceiling, the great city of Samarkand is entirely lost in the deepest, most dreamless phase of its slumber, its turquoise domes and silent minarets merely silhouettes against the vast, cold, and beautiful desert sky. Down here, the water clock continues its patient work, the rhythmic drop, drop, drop of water into the copper basin serving as the planet's own heartbeat. Each drop resonates with a liquid, metallic clarity, not as a countdown to a new day, but as a gentle, hypnotic lullaby that marks the slow, majestic rotation of the spheres. For the astronomer, this is the ultimate truth, that all his striving, all his sleepless nights, and all his intricate designs were merely the path leading to this singular moment of absolute completion. There is no need for further discovery, for he has already found the harmony he sought. The chaos of human history, the noise of the marketplace, and the relentless pressure of mortality are held at an impossible distance, effectively erased by the weight of the earth. In this sanctuary, you are invited to experience the same profound liberation. The burdens of your own life, the anxieties you carry, the expectations you struggle to meet, and the relentless ticking of your own private clock have all dissolved into the shadow. You are no longer required to do, to be, or to solve. You are finally allowed to be nothing more than a witness to this immense, quiet, and beautiful existence. Your body is heavy, surrendered to the supportive floor, every muscle released from the demands of tension, your nerves finally quieted and resting in the profound shade of the laboratory. The silence is not an emptiness, it is a full, vibrant, and nurturing presence that cradles you. As you sink into this deep, restorative, and dreamless sleep, the boundaries of yourself begin to soften and expand, merging with the cedar-scented air, the cool adobe, and the silent, guiding presence of the stars above. You are not merely falling asleep, you are returning to the source of all peace, a state of being where you are held by the history of human devotion and guarded by the eternal order of the universe. The night stretches on, vast and infinite, offering you a refuge that will never be disturbed. You are tucked away in the most protected heart of the world, completely safe, utterly unburdened and perfectly at peace. Here in the quiet depth of the astronomer's sanctuary, you have finally arrived home, drifting into a rest that is as deep, as refreshing, and as sacred as the universe itself, where the stars watch over your slumber and the silence sings a song of timeless, perfect, and eternal wholeness. Everything is finished. Everything is still. Everything is at rest.
Sleepy History with Arthur is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes.
The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history.
But they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience.
This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation.
Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study.
By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.